Sid Kagenou, an ordinary person unlike yourself, who literally forced himself to be reincarnated in another world for the sake of magic, is reborn as the second son of the noble Kagenou family. When awakening to his new life, he always wanted to be a shadow, a person who pretends to be a weak nobody but is actually the strongest menace. In this realm, he chooses to act in secret in hopes of building his own shadow empire to mark their presence. And although his ordinary life from outside of being shadow may be a little questionable, it can't be as questionable as your life. The day starts off with a girl named Nishino, who is currently attending the academy, and just awakened from her alarm after dozing off mid-studying. As she prepares for school, a haunting memory of reporters flashes through her mind, hinting at a painful past that refuses to fade. Unbeknownst to her, a mysterious car, possibly my uncle, begins to trail her as she heads off with her driver. At school, everyone greets Nishino warmly, but her day takes a frustrating turn when a boy she finds irritating named Kagenou repeatedly gets her name wrong. They have been sitting together in class for 3 months, but he still cannot get her name right. Nishino dislikes him. Although she tries to avoid him, she can't completely escape his presence. Despite her calm exterior, Nishino reflects on how she has always pretended to be likable to avoid mistreatment. While standing before a mirror, Nishino recalls her middle school years when a scandal forced her out of show business, leading her to hide her true self behind. As Nishino listens to Kagenou playing the piano, the peaceful melody offers her a brief escape from her harsh reality. Meanwhile, a man who had been following Nishino earlier assaults her driver, leaving him unconscious and squeezes him to the afterlife. After school, when her driver doesn't show up, Nishino is forced to walk home alone. Suddenly, she senses someone following her. Fear grips her as she starts to run, only to be caught by a man who drugs and kidnaps her, and the girls with Stockholm Syndrome probably would have loved this. Just before she lost consciousness, she saw a figure watching from a distance. Nishino wakes up in a dimly lit warehouse, terrified as her captors mock her. One advances on her, desperate and predatory, triggering traumatic memories of a past abduction. Suddenly, a glass bottle shatters against him, and a masked figure, stylish ruffian slayer, emerges. He swiftly takes down the attacker, then faces off against another kidnapper in a brutal fight. Armed with crowbars, the masked man outmatches the knife-wielding thug, before being defeated. He cuts Nishino free, advising caution before vanishing into the night. Dazed, Nishino calls the police, who arrest the captors. Though her father keeps the ordeal quiet, Nishino becomes obsessed with uncovering the identity of her mysterious savior. The next day, Nishino goes back to school, trying to maintain her normal routine. When she sees Kagenou again, she braces herself for another frustrating encounter. But to her surprise, he finally pronounces her name correctly and even looks her in the eye. This unexpected change makes her wonder if there's more to him than she realized, perhaps sensing a delusional connection between them. Later, tragedy strikes as news reports that Kagenou has been hit in a truck accident. Kagenou reflects on his life after death, recalling his lifelong dream to become the Eminence in Shadow, a dream that fueled his every action, even when it seemed impossible. But death is not the end for Kagenou. He is reincarnated in a medieval world where he possesses magical powers. Now leading a team, he embraces his role as the shadowy figure he's always wanted to be, determined to manipulate events from the shadows and achieve his ultimate goal of becoming the Eminence in Shadow. Now we have Alpha, who meets with Sid to verify his information about the cult of Diablos using ancient texts. Though she doubts their mission, Sid reassures her by emphasizing their duty. Sid reflects on his ambition to become the Eminence in Shadow and notes that Alpha sometimes seems like a pick-me. After dying in his past life, Sid reincarnates as a baron's son in a remote area. His good behavior shocks his parents, leading him to cry to avoid suspicion. He meets his sister Claire, who is happy to have a new brother. Sid adapts to his new life, discovers magic in the air, and decides to claim this power, learning his family's history as Dark Knights. During training, Sid tries to break a rock but fails, to keep his family's expectations low. Everyone believes Claire is the rightful heir, as she easily breaks the rocks. Sid acknowledges her talent but secretly views himself as an ordinary Dark Knight in training. He secretly hunts bandits at night using a slime bodysuit and discovers a decaying creature with demon possession, and takes it to an abandoned village for his own weird experiments. After a lot of failed attempts, Sid finally succeeds in removing the magical overload from a creature, transforming it into a young elf girl. As she awakens, Sid decides to present himself as the Eminence in Shadow. He tells the elf girl that he broke the curse placed on her by demon Diablos, who mistook her for a descendant of the three heroes. Sid bluffs that he cannot tell her the true mastermind to protect her, but when the elf girl insists, he names the cult of Diablos as the group behind the curse. Sid explains that they operate in the shadows, and he fights them at night as Shadow, his dark alter ego. He then invites the elf girl to join him in his mission. She pledges her life to him, suggesting they find other hero descendants to form a group. Sid agrees, naming the group Shadow Garden and the elf girl Alpha. Long story short, he made all this up on the spot and just decided to go with it. 3 years later, at 13, Sid trains with Claire, who easily overpowers him. Although he could defeat her, Sid maintains his weak facade. After being knocked into a river, Claire concludes he will never improve. Sid reflects on the challenges of maintaining his side character role while knowing his true strength. At 15, Dark Knights can attend Migger Academy. Claire is abducted before she can leave, leaving her parents distraught. Sid's mother scolds his father, and they argue. Sid's maid Beta, a new member of Shadow Garden, witnesses this. Alpha searches for Claire, and Beta suspects a high-ranking Cult of Diablos member is involved, thinking Claire might be a hero's descendant. Sid orders Beta to contact the Seven Shadows for a mission. At the hideout, George Washington, Viscount Grease, holds Claire captive, asking for her cooperation. Claire dodges his kick and realizes she learned from Sid despite always defeating him. Grease recalls Sid's healing abilities, but Claire denies it, saying it was impossible. Grease expresses interest in Sid, angering Claire, who breaks free but is quickly knocked out by George Washington. One of Washington's men reports an intruder. However, the Seven Shadows eliminate his men, and Alpha confronts him, revealing their mission to destroy the cult of Diablos. Grease, realizing he is outmatched, boosts his magic and escapes, but Alpha is confident Shadow will handle him, and just then he runs into Shadow. Though it wasn't intentional, Sid, being clueless, wandered aimlessly until he was hopelessly lost, coincidentally ending up in that very place. Grease launches an attack, but Shadow effortlessly counters, turning the encounter into a lesson by teaching Grease how to master magic in just 3 steps. As Shadow defeats him, Grease issues a warning: never underestimate the power of the US. In a desperate move, Grease summons a powerful creature, but Shadow, unfazed, eliminates him with ease. And with that, George Washington is back on the dollar bill. Now Claire returns home, healed but in a bad mood, and leaves for the academy as if nothing happened. In the capital, Sid is with Shadow Garden. Though eager to attend the academy, he accepts that he must wait 2 more years. However, Alpha shocks him by announcing that Shadow Garden must leave his side immediately, leaving him to quietly reflect that he always knew they wouldn't play along with his imaginary gang forever. The next day, on the train, Sid reflects on the past 2 years during his journey away from home. He recalls Alpha revealing the global influence of the Cult of Diablos and the Seven Shadows' decision to separate to spread Shadow Garden's influence worldwide in preparation for their battle against the cult. Although he thinks they just went to do their own personal things, Sid understands that people often abandon their childhood dreams as they grow up. He also recalls his past life, where his desperation for magic drove him to such extremes that this menace literally threw himself into truck kun just to go to another world.
I wanna be a Super Saiyan! I wanna!
Now Sid arrives at the Midgar Kingdom after getting off the train. He is now 15 and will enroll in the academy, where his sister Claire is already training to become a Dark Knight. Meanwhile, Sid's dream is to be a background character and even went out of his way to befriend other low-profile students, Skell and Poe. Honestly, Skell looks more like a Shaggy, so his new name from now is going to be Shaggy. And they discuss their low status and dreams of becoming honor students like Sid's sister. Earlier, Sid had lost a bet with his 2 friends, resulting in his penalty to confess to the most popular girl in their school, Alexia Midga. He goes to her to confess, expecting rejection, which would make a perfect plot for his background story. And this is probably the most cringy thing you'll ever see, but to everyone's shock, Alexia accepts his confession. The next day, Sid sits with Shaggy and Poe during lunch. They find it strange that Alexia accepted, considering his existence isn't even near her shoes. Alexia unexpectedly joins them, drawing attention. She orders expensive food, and Sid decides to eat it like a pig in hopes that his operation called Hurry Up and Dump Me already works. However, she suggests they practice swordsmanship together and arranges for Sid to be moved to the top class, Section 1. Sid enters Section 1 under the tutelage of Zenon Griffey. During a sparring session, Sid notices Alexia's slow and weak movements but realizes she is carefully studying their techniques. He considers her technique good but finds her attacks bland, comparing her unfavorably to her sister Iris, the most powerful Dark Knight in the kingdom. After the lesson, Alexia comments that she despises Sid's fencing style because it reminds her of her own. She informs Zenon that she and Sid are now a couple, but Zenon dismisses it. Sid realizes Alexia is using him to escape her engagement to Zenon. When Sid expresses disinterest in getting involved, Alexia threatens to ruin his school life if he backs out. However, once money was in the discussion and Sid's dream to become the eminence, Sid became completely hopeless. Everyone at school becomes obsessed with Sid's relationship rather than actual school, but Sid finds solace in the fact that they focus more on the princess than him. In private, Alexia talks badly about Zenon, calling him narcissistic know-it-all. Sid notes that she is polite in public but more of a witch in private. He eventually stops resisting and goes along with whatever she says. When Alexia invites him to eat ice cream, he asks why she dislikes Zenon, who seems perfect. Alexia explains that she doesn't trust Zenon because he appears too perfect, preferring someone flawed and hopeless like Sid, although he takes that as a compliment and gives this man a reward dog treat for the day. Alexia tells Sid she found his fencing puzzling but captivating. Despite wanting to match her sister Iris's skill, she felt she'd never get there. Sid reassured her he genuinely liked her style, which touched Alexia, who then revealed Iris had said the same but didn't grasp her frustration. Sid shared he values certain things deeply, including her fencing. Alexia, angered, demanded an explanation, leading to Sid revealing he gets upset when people criticize things he cares about. As the train stopped, Alexia said goodbye, and Sid felt their pretend relationship was over. The next day, Shaggy and Poe apologize to Sid for revealing everything to Alexia. They tease him about his progress with her, but Sid assures them nothing significant happened. As they approach the school gates, Zenon and two knights stop Sid, informing him that Alexia is missing and he is the prime suspect. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Sid surrenders. Alexia wakes up to find herself chained by a magical seal and wonders if Sid is responsible. However, she soon notices a strange creature resembling her ex and a deranged scientist approaches, claiming to have found royal blood. When Alexia asks if he kidnapped her, the scientist ignores her and begins drawing blood to use for resurrecting a demon. Meanwhile, Sid endures torture by the Night Order as the suspect that captured her. Although, it's not really enduring, considering Sid is actually just enjoying this and pretending to be a mere background character, going so far as to fake cry when the man pierces his leg. Alexia, confident that her sister has begun searching for her, encounters the scientist again as he draws more blood. She asks him not to take too much, and he assures her that he needs her alive for future blood draws. The scientist shares that his lab was destroyed just as he was about to reach his goal. Alexia tries to sympathize with him to gain favor, and the creature feeds her from a strange bowl so more blood can be drawn. At the academy, Zenon informs Princess Iris about the investigation. Though evidence suggests Sid kidnapped Alexia, Zenon doubts it due to Sid's lack of skill. Iris decides to release Sid under surveillance and asks Zenon to maintain order. Outside, Claire tries to defend Sid and asks to see him, but a woman stops her, saying she can't leave the dorms. As Claire resists, the woman restrains her. Iris reminisces about her past with Alexia, worried about her sister's whereabouts. Alexia's condition worsens as she loses more blood and grows weaker. Sid, now released and in his underwear, heads to the dorm, contemplating healing himself but decides against it to avoid drawing attention. He notices two people tailing him. After getting off a train, a hooded woman passes by and says later, followed by a scream from the men who were tailing him. At the dorm, Alpha surprises Sid in a girls' academy uniform, bringing him a snack. Alpha explains she came because she heard he was in trouble. She updates him on Shadow Garden's progress against the cult and warns him of the danger he's in, advising him to lay low while the team prepares for action. She informs him that Delta is also present because she missed him and then leaves. Now Sid prepares a room with expensive items, completing his eminence in Shadow collection. Beta arrives, excited, and informs Sid that 114 members are ready for their mission to attack Diablo's cult and rescue Alexia. Sid is surprised by the number, but Beta misinterprets his reaction. She shares their plan, with Gamma leading and Alpha and Delta assisting. Sid gives her a letter, saying the world will soon know them. The two men who tortured Sid discuss a missing surveillance update. As they see Sid, they throw a boot at him to frame him for stealing Alexia's boot. But Sid, seeing through their BS, hears a noise and realizes Sid's pursuers have been defeated. Sid with a smile gets his revenge on them, and in his shadow persona, they are wiped out. Meanwhile, Iris is informed of attacks on 8 locations and decides to fight on the front lines. Alexia, still imprisoned and weak, hears the blast and realizes help is on the way. The scientist approaches her with a box, knowing the end is near. He injects a prototype into the monster, which grows into a giant, kills the scientist, and breaks Alexia's chains. Confused as to why the creature is helping her, Alexia escapes the collapsing building. The creature continues to grow, terrifying the people. Alexia finds a key in the scientist's pocket, frees herself, and starts running. She encounters Zenon, who reveals he funded the scientist's research. Although angered, Alexia remains calm, having suspected Zenon was too good to be true. Zenon reveals that he seeks a position in the Knights of Rounds using her blood to gain wealth and fame. Alexia attacks with a move inspired by Iris, but Zenon mocks her for copying her sister. He disarms her and plans to take her with him. Just then, Sid arrives in his shadow form. As Shadow makes a dramatic entrance, Zenon recognizes him as the one who destroyed minor cult bases. However, Zenon dismisses him as a coward for only targeting weaker cult members and boasts about his position as a key cult member in future 12th seed of the rounds. As Zenon attacks, Shadow swiftly moves behind him, moving faster than your girl does to the next one. Now standing near Alexia, now mocking Zenon. In the Midgar Kingdom, a monster is rampaging, causing chaos and injuring many. The knights are unable to harm it, but Iris Midgar arrives and manages to wound it. However, the monster regenerates. Iris cuts off its arm and pushes it into a building, but it still recovers. She decides to cut it into smaller pieces, but Alpha intervenes, accuses Iris of causing it unnecessary suffering, and defeats the monster with a single blow, transforming it back into a human girl. Alpha retrieves a pendant and warns Iris to stay out of Shadow Garden's business before leaving. In the underground capital, Shadow faces Zenon, who admits he underestimated Shadow after witnessing the destruction of cult bases. Zenon, planning to prove his power as a future Knight of the Rounds, intensifies his attacks, but Shadow skillfully counters, ultimately causing Zenon to fall into the water. Alexia watches them in awe, admiring Shadow's exceptional swordsmanship, recognizing it as the ideal technique she aspired to as a child but never felt capable of achieving. She reflects on her feelings of inadequacy compared to her sister Iris and the ridicule she faced for her ordinary fencing style. Alexia is inspired by Shadow's display and begins to understand the true meaning of Iris's praise. After delivering a fatal blow to Zenon, the confused and enraged Zenon demands Shadow reveal his true identity. Shadow introduces himself as part of Shadow Garden, an organization that operates in the shadows. Zenon dismisses this as madness. While Alexia gets nosebleeds, she grows curious about the organization. Zenon, in a desperate attempt to gain power, takes red pills that transform him into the Third Awakened. He attacks Sid, but Shadow easily blocks and mocks him. Shadow criticizes Zenon for relying on borrowed power and defeats him with hand-to-hand combat. Shadow then uses his ultimate move, I Am Atomic, to obliterate Zenon. After the explosion, Alexia finds herself safe at the center of the crater and notices improvement in her swordplay. Iris arrives and hugs her, relieved she is unharmed. The next day at the academy, Alexia meets with Sid, whose name has been cleared of kidnapping charges. Alexia thanks Sid and suggests continuing their pretend relationship, but Sid declines, leading Alexia to attack him in frustration. Meanwhile, the Seven Shadows review their success in destroying the cult's bases and vow to track down schizo imposters misusing Shadow Garden's name. In a destroyed area, Iris discusses with Knights Glenn and Marco about the cult of Diablos and Shadow Garden. She plans to form a new investigation team to explore both organizations, and they agree. Meanwhile, Sherry AC silently bumps into a bloodied Sid, who offers to help her, leaving Sherry rizzed. A citizen is attacked and begs for his life, but the assailants end him while manically chanting, "We are Shadow Garden." At the academy, Shaggy and Poe ask Sid about his relationship with Princess Alexia, wondering if they've visited the Plow Town. Sid tells them they've broken up, which disappoints his friends, who fear Sid will remain a nobody. Shaggy suggests visiting the Mitsugoshi Company for its delicious chocolate, and Sid, intrigued about this world's chocolate, agrees to go. Meanwhile, Iris shows Sherry an unstable artifact. Iris explains it was discovered during the cult of Diablos in Sident. She encourages Sherry, despite her doubts, to help decipher it, as Sherry is the most talented researcher and Sherry's father supports the idea, believing it's a valuable opportunity, so Sherry agrees to it. Later, Sid and his friends arrive at the chocolate shop, with Poe worried about making it back before curfew due to rumors of a killer at night. But Shaggy reassures him that, as Dark Knights, they shouldn't fear a killer. Sid notices the shop's architecture resembles modern Japan. While waiting, a woman invites Sid for a survey, but only Sid is chosen. She takes Sid inside the shop bigger than her melons. Inside, he finds the shop reminiscent of modern times and is led to a room where he meets Gamma, dressed hot enough to give grown man nosebleeds, and is surrounded by elf women. Gamma credits Sid for her success, having created the shop based on his past life's wisdom of Shadow. Sid learns the company's massive 1 billion zeni profits and feels amazed that something he taught led to such success. Gamma also mentions some imposters using the Shadow Garden's name in recent killings, which Sid decides to investigate. As Sid leaves, he meets Nu, a new member of their organization. Sid manipulates Gamma into giving him free chocolates and takes a gold coin when she is not looking. Now, Sid and his friends rush back to the dorms, but Sid hears sword clashes and sends his friends ahead, pretending to need the bathroom. In a back alley, he finds Alexia fighting fake Shadow Garden members. As they are about to delete her existence, Sid intervenes, saving Alexia, who questions his motives before collapsing. Sid tells Alexia not to interfere. After chasing, Sid then kills one of the imposters, leaving the rest to Nu, who finishes them off mercilessly. Elsewhere, a cult underling reports a failed mission to the Gaunt Knight, who shifts focus to retrieving an important item. At the academy, Iris and Alexia discuss the recent events. Alexia, injured, informs Iris that the killers were not real Shadow Garden members but imposters. Iris mentions meeting Alpha from Shadow Garden. She says that the Shadow Garden too has an extreme power, and concludes that both Shadow Garden and the Cult of Diablos are threats to the kingdom. The next morning, rumors spread that Sid soiled himself on the way back to the dorms. Nervously, Shaggy and Po try to change the subject by asking if he got the chocolate, which Sid confirms. During lunch, Shaggy nervously gives chocolate to a girl he likes, but gets beaten up by her fiancé, while Po, learning from Shaggy's mistakes, approaches another girl more cautiously. Sid decides to give chocolate to the first girl he sees, so he gives it to Sherry, who is puzzled, recalling a past encounter with Sid. Sherry later takes the chocolate to her research room, where her father, Lutheran, explains it's a gift for love at first sight. He encourages Sherry to consider her response, emphasizing the importance of social interactions alongside research. He starts coughing, worrying Sherry, but he reassures her about his health. Lutheran expresses pride in Sherry's growth, believing her mother would be proud too. Sherry holds the chocolate, too anxious to focus on her artifact research. She recalls her father telling her the chocolate is a gift and that she should respond. She wonders how to reply to Sid, who must be waiting for her answer. She eats the chocolate and notices her love meter rising. As Sid heads to the academy, he encounters Nu, who is wearing a borrowed Midgar Academy uniform to avoid suspicion. They sit on a bench, and Nu tells Sid that the person they captured last night was brainwashed, making it impossible to extract any information. Sid reads an application for the Bushin Festival student preliminaries, and is puzzled since his friend Shaggy had already submitted his name without his consent. Po and Shaggy, who also want to participate, but are injured and unable to join. Despite their efforts to convince him, Sid refuses to participate and punches them when they suggest he might get a chance to get laid. Nu informs Sid that the Cult of Diablos has been using orphans to create children of Diablos, spreading their seeds, and suspects they are trying to expose Shadow Garden to the public. She also reveals the presence of a new first child, named Red, in the royal capital, who maintains his senses despite being a child of Diablos. Sid finds this a good opportunity and decides to think about it, leaving Nu impressed by his wisdom. The tournament begins, with Claire impressing Princess Iris with her skills. Meanwhile, a shady man manipulates others into betting on the tournament fighters, and Shaggy and Po lose all their money. During Sid's match with Rose, the audience is indifferent toward him. Rose, the princess of Oriana Kingdom and a skilled swordsman, impresses Sid, who decides to reveal his perfected bloody tornado technique. He lets Rose strike first and fakes a dramatic fall with fake blood, playing the role of a background character. Despite seeming to lose, Sid refuses to give up, wanting to test more techniques. Rose, intrigued by his determination, gives her all but is stopped by the referee. She wins the match but feels a newfound respect for Sid. Later, Sid leaves the infirmary, wishing for another chance to showcase his techniques. Sherry, who has been anxious about Sid, stops him and offers him cookies she made. Sid, unaware of her feelings, agrees to be her friend, realizing she is the daughter of Lutheran Barnett, someone he prefers to avoid to keep his identity secret. Lutheran asks Sid to take care of Sherry, who has been through a lot. That evening, Sherry contemplates visiting Sid but hesitates, recalling his past relationship with Alexia. She visits Alexia, who assumes Sherry is there about the artifact. Sherry, however, asks about Alexia's relationship with Sid and is relieved to learn they were never dating, though Alexia is irritated. As Sherry leaves, Alexia's frustration is evident as she breaks her coffee cup in anger. 5 days later, Sid returns to school, noticing little has changed except that people seem nicer to him. Shaggy and Po talk about the student elections, and Rose announces a student council vacancy. Meanwhile, the Gaunt Knight and his warriors activate a barrier around the school. Alexia finds the gate closed and discovers a dead guard. Sid, unable to use his magic, observes ninja-like men claiming to be from Shadow Garden taking over the academy. Rose resists but loses her magic and is about to be defeated when Sid saves her, injuring himself in the process. The fake Shadow Garden attacks Sid's class, prompting him to reflect on how every man dreams of saving his school from terrorists, and for him, this dream is now coming true. He contemplates various possibilities, ultimately deciding that a background character should be the first to die in such an attack. Leading him to intervene and save Rose, who is left devastated and delusionally believes Sid sacrificed himself out of love for her. The terrorists then take the students to the auditorium where the knight is waiting, while Sid punches himself to test his new technique, 10-minute death, heartbreak. He realizes the technique works, allowing him to maintain brain function despite a stopped heartbeat. Though his magic isn't fully operational, he refines it to heal himself, then dons his jacket, deciding it would be disrespectful not to engage with the terrorists given their effort. Meanwhile, Sherry is researching an artifact when a man named Rex, claiming to be from Shadow Garden, breaks into her room with ill intentions. Sherry's bodyguard, Glenn, saves her and mocks Rex, who becomes defensive and hurts Rex's fragile masculinity. As Rex and Glenn engage in combat, Marco tells Sherry to flee, and despite hearing their screams, she doesn't look back. On the rooftop, Sid observes the terrorists gathering all hostages in the auditorium and eliminating security. He critiques their fashion sense as they are wearing black in daylight, so he waits for nightfall to attack them, so he doesn't look as shady as these losers after spotting Sherry running in away. He saves her multiple times, and after a series of close encounters, catches her before she falls down a stairwell, advising her to remove her noisy slippers. When Sid and Sherry reach her father's office, they find it empty. Sherry finds documents about the Eye of Avarice, an artifact that absorbs magic and could potentially kill everyone in the auditorium if overloaded. Sid notes the imposter's use of magic, and Sherry explains the artifact's selective absorption capability. She plans to use her artifact to control the eye and prevent disaster by reaching the auditorium through hidden passages. Sid, finding her plan decent but weak in parts, offers to retrieve the necessary tools from her office. Meanwhile, Rex boasts about their plan's success, but the Gaunt Knight orders him to retrieve the artifact from Sherry, warning of severe consequences if he fails. Rex mentions their men being killed by a skilled individual, suspecting Shadow Garden's involvement. As Rex and his men traverse the academy, Sid intercepts and easily defeats them, leading Rex to realize Sid's power surpasses any artifact before Sid finishes him off. At Sherry's office, New closes Glenn's eyes, noting his defeat despite being a prestigious knight. She is about to kill Marco when Sid interrupts, and New reveals Marco is her fiancé. Sid instructs New to help him collect items needed to research the artifact, explaining that the Eye of Avarice blocks magic and stops working near another artifact. After Sid leaves, New spares Marco, telling him he has been saved for another day. Sherry begins her research as the Academy Knights gather in the auditorium. Meanwhile, Gamma prepares everything, and Sherry asks for her father's wisdom to help decipher the artifact. The whole school is under a magic barrier and no one can escape or enter the area. The magic forces surrounded the school, but they panic too. They know that they are going to face a dangerous foe. All captive students are in the hall, and they aren't tied up because, with their magic, they are unable to fight anyone. Barnett and Sid are together in the room and they are performing an exorcism. Barnett gets successful, and she can control the Eye of Avarice from shutting their magic down. Sid asks her about what they are going to do about the hidden tunnels, and Barnett opens the secret passage so that they can help her father. Barnett's mother was killed in front of her eyes, and she started living with her mother's friend, who became her father. She decided that it was her time to repay her father and help him. Barnett decides to go ahead alone and Sid is left behind. Rose starts panicking because she is under a lot of pressure, and then a student gets shocked. Barnett sees that Klaus is using the Eye of Ava, Rice, and she uses her spell to repel it. Once the barrier is removed, Rose rushes ahead to attack the soldier. The soldiers are afraid now because the magic is released. Klaus orders them to kill all students and he starts walking away. Sid jumped from the roof and he brought Shadow Garden members with him. They all start helping students and Rose commands everyone to escape from the auditorium. Klaus lit the fire all over the school and disappeared. Rose and the other students escape in time and Iris meets Rose outside of the school. Rose tells Iris that a mysterious organization, Shadow Garden, wiped out all the terrorists. Only Barnett is left inside the school because she is still searching for her father. Klaus is in the principal's room and he lit fire on all the books. Sid meets him and guesses that he is Barnett's father. Klaus removes his mask and he is Ruslan in reality. He is surprised that Sid recognizes him so fast, and Sid asks him a question about why he is doing all that. Ruslan tells him that he once reached the top of the sword fighting world, but he desired more than that to cure his disease. At that time, he met Barnett's mother, R, who was an an unfortunate woman but intelligent, and he funded her research. So on. When Barnett's mother developed the Eye of Avarice, she knew that it was dangerous, so she decided to hand it over to the government for safekeeping. That's when Ruslan decided to kill her and obtain that artifact. Barnett never realized anything and she adapted her mother's research. Ruslan tells Sid that he just used Barnett all the way. Sid and Ruslan start fighting and Ruslan cuts him and throws him out of the window in an instant. Suddenly, Ruslan heard a voice behind him and it was Shadow. Ruslan gets nervous and uses the Eye of Avarice to beat him. But Shadow can block all the attacks. He slashes Ruslan's shoulder and asks him if that was the best he could do. He couldn't believe that Shadow was stronger than him even though he was using the Eye of Avarice. Ruslan says that he already made a plan to put all the blame on him and escape. Shadow tells him that he is really to accept blame for any crime, but it isn't going to change anything, that he is walking on the righteous path. Shadow starts stabbing Ruslan in his body and killing him the same way he killed Sherry's mother. Barnett enters the room and witnesses Shadow killing her beloved father and starts screaming. Shadow decides to not let her know about the real identity of Ruslan. Later, Alpha sees the wanted poster of Shadow and starts laughing. She knew that Shadow accepted all the blame and also knew that they were going to do their work no matter what. The school closed and Sid got an early summer break. He met Barnett and both of them started talking. Barnett thanks Sid for his help and tells him that she decided to go far away. Sid asks her about what is going to happen, but Barnett says that it is a secret and goes away. As the school was half destroyed, the students were gone on early summer break. It is quiet at the dorm, too, and Sid decided to stay. He doesn't have much to do either, and when Nishino comes to meet him, he is hiding. Sid receives a letter from Alpha, and it is an invitation to his new mission in the sacred land, Lindworm. All members of Shadow Garden live at Lindworm. Epsilon wakes up, she sees herself in the mirror and smiles. It is because the day is beautiful and she can change her appearance as she likes because she has been granted power from Shadow to change her body. Epsilon adores Shadow and loves him too. On the other hand, Beta imagines Shadow in her script, and she also loves him. She gets exhausted from writing and decides to get some fresh air. Epsilon and Beta confront each other and start arguing. Nu met them on her way, and she says that she got directives from Lady Alpha. Iris and Alexia are in the shopping mall. They plan to visit the sacred land and want to prepare for their trip. The manager meets them and shows them a few women's undergarments, thong. Iris panics and tells Alexia not to touch them because they are too short. Alexia is excited and enters a changing area with Iris. There was a fire in a school and many students got injured. Rose rushes toward the infirmary and she starts searching and finds Sid alive. She gets happy and hugs him. She tells him that it is a miracle he survived. But it was all a dream. Rose is sleeping on Sid's arm and gets dull because of the small space. They both are traveling together in a train and probably going to the sacred land. Sid knew that he could just wait till nightfall to sprint toward the sacred land and admitted that his idea of taking an economy class seat on a train like a normal student was a mistake. Rose happens to see him at the train station and decides to go with him. Rose guesses that Sid is going to attend the goddess trial and he agrees with her. She starts adoring him and gets in love with him even more. She says that if he can pass the goddess trial, it will be easy for her to talk to her father about their marriage.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Rose gets stuck with Sid and tries to sleep with him at night, but he hides himself like usual. He knew that the trip was going to be a drag. They both arrive at the town and it is really beautiful. At the hotel, Sid reflects on his indifference to most things but still cares deeply about the hot spring. Despite rumors he doesn't bathe. He enters the hot spring and finds Alexia, who is surprised to see him. After a brief exchange, she explains she's a special guest for the goddess's trial, while Sid says he's there for fun. Alexia questions Sid's reckless approach, noting his lack of knowledge about the goddess's trial, an annual event where ancient warriors are awakened to challenge participants. She explains that only pre-registered individuals deemed worthy by warriors can compete, with only a few getting selected. Alexia recalls a wandering swordsman named Venom, who summoned the hero Oliver, though she doesn't know the outcome. She isn't participating to fight but to investigate the Archbishop's murder, a detail she can't fully share with Sid, as he is considered an outsider. When she suggests he join the Crimson Knights for more information, Sid bluntly refuses. Now Alexia is surprised that Sid isn't ogling her and is instead indifferent. But Sid says he doesn't look at flat people in hot springs and makes a remark about his own Excalibur, which shocks Alexia when he reveals it.
Hot diggity dog!
In the field, the new Archbishop, Jack Nelson, opens the goddess trial. Alexia dislikes him for canceling her audit and assigning the Archbishop's murder investigation to the church. She plans to return to the capital to regain authority but worries it might be too late to recover crucial evidence. Meanwhile, the crowd goes wild over Natsume, a popular author sitting next to Alexia. Despite her perfect appearance and her large knockers, Alexia dislikes her for her pick-me behavior, believing she's worse on the inside. Natsume also dislikes Alexia, resenting her princess status in the rivalry over the Lord's Shadow. The trial begins as Jack activates a pink Hello Kitty-themed magic circle, covering the entire stadium. As the first contestants from Oriana Kingdom enter, someone in the audience explains that even if an ancient warrior is summoned, the contestant can't leave until one is defeated, and last year, someone even died. Another person asks why anyone would risk their life, and the first explains that defeating an ancient warrior earns a high medal and a chance to join any knight order in the world. Sid, sitting nearby, wonders if he'll get a chance to showcase his eminence powers, though he doesn't want to break the rules, so he plans to save his grand entrance for later. As Sid ponders where Alpha is, she and the rest are investigating the town. At night, Sid yawns in the stadium, hoping the event will end soon. Just then, they call the last contestant, Sid from Midgar Academy, for Dark Knights. Sid scoffs at the boring name but realizes they're calling him. Nelson is impressed, assuming the participant must be skilled. Natsume is surprised, while Rose hopes this will lead to a bright future as she was the one who submitted Sid's name. Sid considers his three options: resign from his role as a background character and fight, but that might reveal his powers if a strong ancient warrior appears, run away, but that could get him expelled and anger his sister, or choose a third option. As the announcer is about to cancel the match, a flashy purple light distracts everyone, revealing a shadow on the field. Sid chooses to confuse everyone, knowing they'll be baffled by the diversion. The shadow introduces himself, worrying Rose and confusing Alexia. Jack mocks the shadow, but Shadow Sid summons Aurora, the Witch of Calamity. Aurora attacks, but Shadow dodges every strike. Shadow reflects that, for them, the battle is like a conversation, given their shared psychotic sadism. Jack thinks Shadow is losing, but Natsume notes he hasn't been hit. Shadow Sid then pierces Aurora's chest, defeating her. The stadium's shield breaks, and powerful magic spreads, with Alpha observing from a distance. After the battle, Sid reflects on how everyone is likely focused on the Shadow, forgetting about him, a minor character. He considers going to a hot spring but encounters a magical gate that follows him, realizing he can't avoid it, so he decides to enter. At the stadium, another magical gate appears, causing Rose to wonder if a warrior will emerge. The Archbishop explains that the sanctuary is responding to the Shadow. Jack clarifies that the sanctuary's door only opens annually, never during a trial, and it only lets worthy people enter. He panics when the door opens and orders an evacuation. Jack hears a noise and sees the Shadow Garden. Alpha instructs everyone to behave until the door closes, leaves Epsilon behind, and enters the gate. Rose questions Epsilon, who mocks them and takes Jack and Natsume hostage. Alexia suggests letting Natsume die to avoid dealing with another annoying person. As the gate closes, Epsilon asks Jack to follow, but he refuses and orders his guard to attack her, who slices through Epsilon fake melons, which awakens her divine woman rage. Epsilon kills the guard in a rage and threatens Jack, who denies seeing anything. Epsilon drags Jack through the gate, taking Natsume hostage, while Alexia and Rose follow. Inside the gate, Alexia and Rose land on Natsume's mighty talents, and Alpha dismisses their intrusion. They learn they have entered the sanctuary, where the demon Diablos' left arm is sealed. Alpha reveals their mission is to learn about the cult of Diablos, not retrieve the arm. Alpha leads them to a statue of the hero Oliver, surprising Alexia, who thought Oliver was male. Alpha realizes the true history of the cult and its goals. Jack panics upon learning Oliver was a possessed elf, and Alpha reveals that the cult's goals go beyond reviving the demon. Now Alpha uses her demon power to open a gate, revealing a white place that is actually a graveyard of ancient memories and grudges. Hero Oliver stands beside Alpha, who explains the place's significance. Sid finds himself in a room with the Witch of Calamity, Aurora, who denies summoning him but praises his strength. She explains that she doesn't know how she ended up on the battlefield. Sid dismisses her information as useless and plans to leave, but Aurora asks him to free her from magical chains. After freeing her, Aurora suggests they team up to escape the memory prison they're trapped in by destroying its magical core. Sid agrees, and Aurora mentions that she will vanish once they escape. Inside the sanctuary, Alpha and the others explore Oliver's memories, discovering the site was used for experiments on orphaned children, many of whom died. Those who survived were considered possessed. Now Sid finds himself in Aurora's memory, where they encounter a crying girl who resembles Aurora. Aurora harshly tells the girl, who is her younger self, to stop whining, while Sid thinks she is too harsh. Alpha reveals that Oliver was compatible with demon cells, and the cult implanted these cells into children. Jack justifies it as necessary to fight demons, but Alpha dismisses this. Oliver's mission was to kill Diablos and extract his cells, but the cult had other plans. During the battle with Diablos, Oliver fought him repeatedly, but he kept resurfacing. The cult sealed Diablos' left arm and researched it, leading to the creation of capsules containing Diablos cells, but with undesirable side effects. Jack reveals that he was involved in creating the capsules, which grant power and stop aging. Alpha corners Jack, who admits the capsules are called beads of Diablos, but they have flaws. She exposes Jack as the 11th of the rounds, and Delta kills him before he can transform into a demon. Jack reemerges in his demon form, breaking the memory. Some elves remain, while others are teleported to a white space. Jack makes his clones to fight, and both sides brace for battle. Delta defeats Jack's clones in the White Room, even without magic. Jack reveals that the sanctuary drains power from others while boosting his own. Confident in his strategy, he creates more clones to move closer to the sanctuary. Delta eagerly anticipates more fighting. Meanwhile, Sid and Aurora walk through a void and suddenly fall onto a battlefield.
重い。
気のせいでしょ。
They encounter a younger version of Aurora, who asks for Sid's sword to cut down her younger self but is interrupted by zombie guards. Sid saves her, speculating that the soldiers are antivirus defenses. Aurora explains that if she dies, she will likely return to the room where Sid first found her. At the same time, Epsilon and the other elves face a possessed girl. A white light makes her disappear as she approaches. Epsilon explains that the place is similar to the goddess Trial, reacting to the memories of the possessed. They find a library with records of failed experiments. Realizing they can't take the material with them, one elf uses a rollipoid camera to capture the information. As they approach the sanctuary's center, the elves start losing their magic, entering a weeb's dream, causing one elf's clothes to disappear. Suddenly, Epsilon slime chestnuts fall on the ground. Everyone starts glaring at it. Epsilon quickly retrieves her fallen slime talents, pretending nothing happened.
何かあったかしら。いえ、何も。
While Sid fights zombies with ease, Aurora struggles without her powers. She observes Sid's skills and humorously compares him to a gorilla. Realizing that fighting without magic is tiring, more and more zombies emerge, so Sid kills the younger Aurora, ending the memory. Sid and Aurora escape the memory and find a large gate locked by golden chains with a sword nearby. Aurora identifies it as the sanctuary's center. When Sid tries to break the chains, Aurora stops him, explaining that only a direct descendant can wield the sword. With no other options, they decide to wait. Meanwhile, Delta continues her brutal fight against Jack's clones. After defeating them, she escapes the memory and confronts the real Jack, who is shocked by her ability. Delta mocks Jack, explaining that his clones share one brain, making them easy to defeat. Epsilon reunites with them as they gather information, so they get ready to leave. Alpha explains that their goal was to cut off the power source and learn about the sanctuary's defenses, not to fight. They leave, ignoring Jack's threats. Alone, Jack plots to take Alpha's blood to perfect the beads. He gets a notification that some people are still in the sanctuary's center and heads there with Oliver. At the center, Sid asks Aurora if she truly wants to disappear. She clarifies that destroying the core will likely set her free, as they are trapped in a repeating memory prison. Sid tells her to wait, believing that things will work out. Just then, Jack and Oliver appear. Disappointed that Jack is the protagonist, Sid notes that Oliver resembles someone he knows. Jack mocks Sid, saying he will never open the door and is doomed to die. Jack sends Oliver to attack. Sid assures Aurora he has everything under control. As Oliver attacks, Sid's sword breaks and he is thrown across the room. Despite his injuries, Sid continues to smile, confusing Jack. Oliver attacks again, but Sid stands up, shocking Jack. Sid comments that battles without conversation are meaningless, and since Oliver has no heart, she isn't responding to him. Jack orders Oliver to finish Sid, but Aurora, grateful for the new memories Sid has given her, asks him to stop and let her handle it. Jack laughs at her helplessness without magic and offers to spare Sid if she helps him with the cult's plans. Sid interrupts, stating he doesn't need help and won't lose. Jack, furious, orders Oliver to kill Sid, who then opens his right eye, revealing that he has finally got it. Sid successfully captures and bites Oliver, causing her to disappear, which leaves Aurora in a state of shock. Meanwhile, Sid emits a sinister aura, and Jack, surprised that Sid survived the attack, questions how he managed to do so. Sid explains that the human body can endure much if the vital organs are protected, which he finds beautiful. Jack, thinking Sid has lost his mind, mocks him for defeating Oliver without magic but warns him not to be overconfident, as he only defeated a clone. Subsequently, Jack summons multiple clones of Oliver to attack Sid. Despite the overwhelming numbers, Sid eventually defeats them using his magic. Nelson is astonished by Sid's ability to wield magic, which Sid explains was absorbed and then solidified. Jack argues that such a feat is impossible for a human and orders the clones to attack Sid again. However, Sid, undeterred, powers up even more, and after getting slightly injured, He laughs and casts a powerful spell. As the battle intensifies, Sid whispers a command, resulting in a massive explosion visible across the city, shocking the Shadow Garden.
Atomic.
In the aftermath, Sid finds himself in a void near Diablo's chained arm. As he approaches it, he suddenly wakes up in Aurora's lap. Aurora, relieved, asks how he survived. Sid reveals that he used magic to move his heart, impressing Aurora. However, as she touches him, she begins to disappear. She confesses that she summoned Sid to fade away but has now created an unforgettable memory. Before vanishing, she advises Sid on what to do when he meets the real her. Meanwhile, Alexia, Rose, and Natsume witness the explosion and suspect it's the work of Shadow. Alexia feels powerless, fearing she will lose everything she cares about. Rose agrees, noting that many secret organizations seem to be at work. Alexia proposes they work together to gather information, and they form a team to investigate further. In another part of the city, Epsilon reports to Alpha that the sanctuary has been destroyed, and the magical core obliterated. Alpha suspects Lord Shadow's involvement and directs their next mission to be in the royal capital of Midgar. They also confirm that Aurora was the Witch of Calamity, also known as Demon Diablos. After receiving this information, the Shadow Garden executives vanish, preparing for their next move. Elsewhere, Rude meets with Gamma to discuss opening a new shopping center, but Gamma reminds him of Mitsugoshi's ongoing reconstruction efforts. Despite Rude's insistence, Gamma ultimately agrees to purchase all the property on the street after learning of a petroleum reservoir in Rude's domain. Gamma plans to redevelop the city, aiming to make it a major hub in the Vegalta Empire. The Shadow Seven discuss Delta's absence and discover she's still in the Sacred Land. An elf jokes about leaving her there until she gets cold and returns. When Alpha arrives, she reminisces about their childhood training with Sid at a temporary base, where they prepared to face the cult of Diablos. She recalls Sid's promise to share his wisdom and teach them to be self-sufficient. Meanwhile, Iris and Alexia discuss Jack's involvement in the cult and the need to investigate the divine teachings, despite the secrecy surrounding the sanctuary. Iris hopes that winning the Bushin Festival will gain her the support needed to take action. Alexia worries about potential interference from the Shadow Garden or the cult of Diablos, but Iris is determined to win. When Iris questions how Alexia ended up in the sanctuary, Alexia evades the question, leaving Iris resolved to win the festival and prove her strength. Finally, Rose trains in fencing, trying to replicate a technique she saw during Shadow's rescue. However, she experiences pain and discovers a mysterious red growth on her chest. Sid watches everyone from the clock tower as they prepare for the Bushin Festival. Fighters come from around the world to participate. Suddenly, Sid has an idea. Since everyone, including sponsors, fighters, and spectators, is there to witness strength, he decides to enter the tournament using his powers. As he gets lost in his delusions, he plans to pretend to be weak and then impress everyone by winning, expecting applause. Sid meets Gamma, who rushes to him, dropping her peach pie. Gamma asks how she can assist him, and Sid requests a disguise to enter the Bushin Festival. When Gamma inquires about the reason, Sid refuses to reveal it. Gamma doesn't press further and prepares a closet full of items for him. She applies a cream that mimics human skin, transforming Sid's appearance. Gamma suggests the identity Mundane Man, a lazy character with a tragic story. Sid likes the idea and adopts the disguise, even changing his voice to match the character. In the capital, Anaros, one of Velgata's 7 blades, notices Sid disguised as Mundane Man and warns him against joining the festival, assuming he'll lose. Mundane advises her not to judge by appearances and dismisses her offer of help. Pleased that his disguise is effective, Sid is then confronted by Quentin, who overhears and mocks him, telling Sid to go suckle on his mama's balloons, leading to a brief scuffle. Anrose intervenes, warning Quentin off, and apologizes to Sid for not stepping in sooner. She introduces herself, and Sid, still as Mundane Man, quietly leaves. Sid registers for the festival, lost in his thoughts about how he will be celebrated. People notice his odd behavior and think he is losing his mind. At a restaurant, Sid and his friend eat, entering the Quentin Tarantino cinematic universe. They discuss over burgers about the Bushin Festival. His friend explains that only the toughest fighters will qualify for the main tournament. Sid plans to reveal his true power only at the climax of the event. His friend, who intends to bet on the fighters, tells Sid about the participants. Sid learns that Princess Iris, Rose, and a strong fighter from the Vegalta Empire will participate. When his friend asks for betting money, Sid quickly leaves. On his way home, Sid meets Rose, who is there to meet someone. She notices his takeaway bag and asks if he went to Mag Ronald's, mentioning her fondness for their food. Rose talks about her friendship with Princess Alexia and Natsume, Despite the awkwardness between the two, Sid finds it amusing since they are similar. Rose reveals that she is meeting her fiancé, Perv Asshat, and reflects on how a childhood memory of being rescued inspired her to pursue swordsmanship. Sid encourages her before she leaves. At the tournament preliminaries, Sid's friend points out a participant in flashy armor named Goldie Gilded. They watch a match between Gonzalez Machomber and Mundane Man, with Goldie predicting Gonzalez's easy victory. However, to everyone's surprise, Mundane wins. Rose, watching, is also shocked. Goldie learns from this experience but vows to defeat Mundane in their upcoming match. Sid, seeing Anna Rose's reaction, is pleased and plans to continue impressing her. The next morning, Shaggy rushes to Sid with news that Rose has stabbed her fiancé, Perv Asshat, and fled. Sid is left puzzled, wondering why Rose took such drastic action. Alexia wonders why Rose made such a drastic decision. Natsume believes Rose is in the northern part of the royal capital. The Oriana Kingdom decides to handle the situation themselves and asks Midgar not to interfere, fearing that any punishment from Midgar could damage relations. Alexia doubts her father will be of any help. Natsume informs Alexia that Rose's fiancé is the second son of a Oriana Duke, and if Rose is caught, she will face severe punishment. But as royalty, she won't receive the death penalty, as Rose escapes through an underground cave, chased by someone. Alexia decides to find Rose and Natsume advises against it, believing Rose doesn't want them involved. Alexia insists on helping Rose, gets angry at Natsume, and then leaves to seek Iris's advice. Natsume decides to gather more information about Rose, suspecting something is wrong with her fiancé. Now Natsume asks an elf for more information about Perv Asshat and the Oriana family to understand the danger better. The elf reports that Rose has escaped through the sewers into underground ruins filled with hiding spots. Natsume asks the elf to continue tracking Rose's location, and the elf reports seeing Rose running with a hand on her flat chest in various areas. At the Bushin Festival, Sid reads about Rose in the newspaper, while Shaggy is upset about losing money in gambling. Sid decides to focus on the tournament. He meets Beatrix, who senses an elven presence on him and asks if he knows any elves. Sid mentions having elf friends, and Beatrix reveals her face, resembling Alpha. Although Sid recognizes her, he pretends not to. Beatrix attacks him, but he doesn't react, maintaining his background character image. Beatrix apologizes for overestimating this malnourished noodle dude and predicts he will become strong, mistaking his reaction for weakness. Anna Rose watches a dull match, and Quentin suggests she's there for Mundane Man's match. They discuss Mundane unusual moves in previous matches. Anna Rose notes that Goldie Gilded, Mundane's next opponent, only fights those he can beat, earning him the title Unbeatable Legend. Goldie can't gauge Mundane's true strength, suggesting Mundane hasn't shown his full power yet. Goldie quickly attacks Mundane's neck, but Mundane dodges easily. Goldie imagines being defeated by Mundane, causing him to freeze in fear. Mundane starts to draw his sword, but Goldie retreats. Anna Rose observes that Mundane cracked his neck during Goldie's attack, which shouldn't be possible so fast. Goldie tries to provoke Mundane, but Mundane remains still. Goldie unlocks his full power and attacks, but Mundane's small scream causes Goldie to fall back. The audience is stunned when Mundane wins. Anna Rose remarks that Goldie's potential as a Dark Knight is impressive, and Quentin is shocked to learn that Mundane's sneezes coincided with his sword swing, making it seem like an attack. Iris meets with Perv Asshat, who dismisses her concerns about increasing security at the Bushin Festival. He argues that the Oriana Kingdom should handle its internal affairs, frustrating Iris, though the king agrees with him. Iris controls her anger. Mundane defeats Quentin effortlessly, leaving the audience baffled by his continuous wins. As Mundane doesn't seem to be doing anything, his opponents keep losing on their own. His next fight is with Anna Rose, and his chances of winning are slim. After the battle, Sid wonders why Quentin's face seems familiar. Anna Rose confronts him, admitting she underestimated him and warning that he can't win against her with the same moves. Mundane smiles subtly, offending Anna Rose. Mundane then removes the armors on his arms, revealing they were holding him back. Anna Rose, trying to mimic his neck-cracking move, puzzles Mundane. In the tunnel, Rose fights off a soldier, instructing her to seek treatment since she didn't hit any vital areas. Mundane is badly beaten by his opponent. He claims he's shown only a fraction of his power, but Sid is unsure how much was revealed. Shaggy arrives with a flyer that declares Rose a wanted criminal, and he suggests capturing her for a reward. Sid, uninterested, wishes Shaggy luck since they're best friends. Sid admires Rose for rebelling against her fiancé and wishes he could have seen her courage. When Claire visits Sid, he quickly changes and jumps out the window with Shaggy to avoid her. Sid and Shaggy part ways. Sid wonders if Rose escaped safely. He wishes he could ask Rose what inspired her to have a Gone Girl moment. Walking through the city, he hears piano and recalls being forced to learn it in his past life. Though initially a chore, piano became an escape and helped him focus on training. Over time, his interest grew and he learned to appreciate melodies. As Sid hears a familiar melody and finds Epsilon playing the piano. After her performance, Epsilon reveals that Moonlight Sonata is her favorite among the songs Sid inadvertently taught her, which has brought her fame and an invitation to perform in Oriana Kingdom. When Sid asks about Rose, Epsilon mentions that Beta is handling the situation and that Rose is rumored to be in the tunnels under the royal capital. Before leaving, Sid thanks Epsilon and praises her figure, flustering her while his eyes linger on the piano. Alexia learns from Iris that Rose's fiancé is working with the cult. Natsume agrees but points out they lack evidence. Alexia's father warned her not to get into trouble, stressing the need to convince people and the government if they want to expose the cult of Diablos. Iris found no useful information after visiting King Oriana, and Alexia worries the cult will soon attack their kingdom. They enter an ancient underground passage meant for royal escapes, now a maze since all maps, keys, and codes were lost long ago. Alexia believes Rose may have used the passage and they're there to find her. Natsume complains about not being informed of the danger, but Alexia insists they can retrace their steps if needed. Natsume, frustrated, follows her lead. Inside the tunnels, Rose's condition worsens. She reflects on her decisions, questioning if attacking Perv Asshat was right. She recalls her father acting strangely, Perv and the soldiers' sinister smiles, revealing their allegiance to the cult. In anger, she attacked Perv, but was labeled mad and had to flee. Perv threatened her to surrender before the Bushin festival, or he would make her father kill a guest. Rose doubts her impulsive decision, thinking surrender might prevent a war. She remembers Sid's belief in her and dreams of marrying him, but feels it's now impossible. Her condition worsens, but she follows the sound of a piano and finds Shadow playing. Rose claps for Shadow's performance, and he confronts her when Rose says she wants to protect her people but feels powerless. Shadow advises her to stop fighting, but Rose refuses, wanting a better future. Shadow offers his power, and when Rose asks if it can change the future, he says it depends on her. Rose accepts, and Shadow's power heals her, removing the mark on her chest. Shadow should be brand ambassador for Pink Ribbon. Shadow tells her true strength lies in one's way of being. After Shadow leaves, cult members attack Rose, but she easily defeats them with her new power. Shadow's power feels like sunshine in Rose's darkness. Now Alexia and Natsume sense Rose's energy and find her. Rose reveals she's gained new power but refuses to involve Alexia. Alexia reminds her of their promise to protect what they care about, but Rose says she can't back out now. Alexia tries to stop her by force, but Rose easily overpowers her. Rose puts her on the ground. Rose apologizes and leaves, with Natsume not stopping her. Natsume notes that though they come from different places, they share the same ideals, believing their paths will cross again soon. At the hall, authorities investigate the missing piano.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
Sid returns to his dorm wishing he had his own piano, but is surprised to find his sister still waiting for him. Claire gets furious with Sid for making her wait and imagines various ways to punish him. She assumes Sid doesn't care, so she grabs his neck and suggests an experiment to torture him further by testing how long he can hold his breath. After Sid promises to fulfill all his promises in the future, she releases him and gives him a VIP ticket to the Bushin Festival. Claire reveals she will represent the Academy in Princess Rose's place, urging Sid to attend. Alexia visits Natsume, but a woman informs her that Natsume has gone abroad for research. Alexia finds a file containing information on the Oriana Kingdom's main enterprise and religious organization. She acknowledges Natsume's value, despite her outward appearance, but decides to leave because she doesn't want anyone to pity her. At the Bushin Festival, Sid uses his VIP ticket to find his seat, which turns out to be a high-class one next to Iris. When Iris recognizes him as Claire's brother, she assures him he is in the right seat and apologizes for the Xenon incident. Sid, frustrated that Iris's apology ruins his background character plans, accepts it. When Iris asks about his friendship with Alexia, Sid downplays it, saying he only used to collect her gold coins, confusing Iris. An attention-seeking woman asks Iris who might win the festival, and Iris names Anaros, a former member of the Vegalta's Seven Blades. Another student praises Iris, but she admits she wants to win as the fate of the Royal Bushin method and her kingdom depends on it. Sid mentions another strong fighter, Mundane Man, whom he claims will face Anaros next. Iris is unsure of Mundane capabilities, while another girl describes his speed but criticizes his lack of skill. Sid is pleased with the reputation he's created for Mundane. As Sid leaves the arena, he encounters Beatrix, who asks if he's seen an elf resembling her.
無視した
無視してないよ。
本当に
本当だよ。
そうか。
そうだよ。
After Sid denies it, Beatrix offers him an extra burger from her bag, which he accepts before they part ways. Before the fight, Anna Rose believes mundane power lies in his overwhelming speed, though his sword technique and stance are weak. She quickly attacks to prevent him from using his speed. But Mundane stops her and then disappears, reappearing beside her. Mundane strikes with full speed, sending Anna Rose flying, getting her closer to God and then striking her down. Anna Rose acknowledges his power, realizing that if there had been magic in his attack, she would have been finished. Despite her attempts to counterattack, Mundane dodges and defeats her. Iris, surprised by Mundane's strength, finds it suspicious that no one knows anything about him. In the next round, Iris prepares to fight Mundane, confidently stating he hasn't reached her level. Perv orders an investigation into Mundane, dismissing the possibility that he is from Shadow Garden due to its harem reputation. In the changing room, Anna Rose, defeated and bandaged, admits to Mundane that she left her country to become strong but had been fooling herself about her strength. Mundane tells her to be proud, as it was the first time he had to unchain his shackles. Anna Rose offers Mundane a government post, but he declines, saying the world is too bright for him. As the Bushin Festival continues, Iris easily defeats her opponent and notices Beatrix leaving the stadium. Iris follows her, confirms her identity, and introduces herself. Beatrix offers Iris a burger, which Iris refuses. On his way home, Sid reflects on his performance at the festival and contemplates how to defeat Princess Iris. He considers either disappearing after defeating her or creating chaos by announcing a battle between everyone. When he arrives home, Claire confronts him about the match, making Sid fear for his life. Meanwhile, Rose is at Midgar Academy, changing her clothes. She holds a burger wrapper that Sid gave her and plans to move forward with her plans. Iris pushes herself hard in training, reflecting on her past successes when she easily defeated opponents. As others praise her, she wins the Bushin Festival, and they consider her the pride of the Royal Bushin Festival. However, Iris becomes furious, recalling Alpha telling her to stay away, and merely watch as an audience member. She also felt helpless during an academy attack and when her father dismissed her concerns about the divine teachings, advising her not to be stubborn and risk the kingdom. Iris is determined to prove she's not useless waste of eggs. Meanwhile, Sid enjoys the perks of his VIP seat, sipping coffee. Iris joins him, and they discuss her upcoming match. Iris tries Sid's coffee with milk and sugar, finding it delicious.
王女様と優雅な朝食ナウとネットでバズること間違いなしだな。
At the same time, guards stop Beatrix from entering the arena. Iris intervenes, introduces Beatrix, and they sit next to Sid, who is annoyed by the attention Beatrix draws. Beatrix reveals she's looking for her niece, who resembles her. Sid recognizes Beatrix's true strength as War Queen, though she hides it by appearing clumsy. Meanwhile, Perv controls the King of Oriana with a foul-smelling medicine. He plans to manipulate Rose and use the King of Oriana to cause conflict between two kingdoms. Though Perv worries about Mundane Man, whom he suspects might be from the underworld, and deploys soldiers to deal with him. As Perv and the King pass Beatrix, she notices the bad smell, leading to an awkward interaction. Iris introduces Beatrix to Perv, who recognizes her as the elf who awakened the hero's blood. Perv wonders about Beatrix's presence and contemplates taking her down but proceeds with his plan as long as Rose shows up. Perv then sees Sid leaving the arena for a bathroom break, which disgusts him. The battle begins with Claire defeating her opponent, but Perv sees her as no threat. In the next match, Iris faces Mundane Man. The crowd cheers her on, boosting her ego, but she is unsettled by Mundane mysterious power. As the fight begins, Iris experiences the sensation of losing limbs due to Mundane deceptive attacks. Meanwhile, Claire searches for Sid, who is not in his seat. Claire regrets sharing genes with him. Rose, in disguise, tries to enter the arena. Rose wakes up on the ground, recalling what happened. Mundane provokes her, and she senses danger. As she approaches him, she again feels the sensation of losing a limb and wonders if it's an illusion. Iris realizes Mundane power as his striking range covers the entire arena. Meanwhile, Rose heads toward the VIP area, finding cult members lying on the ground. She encounters the Shadow Garden, who encourages her to fulfill her mission. In the arena, Iris struggles against Mundane's attacks, realizing his incredible skill. As she prepares to strike, she notices Mundane's sword is still sheathed. Realizing she is under an illusion, Mundane cuts her sword and beats her, shocking the audience. Her father, disappointed, leaves, and Perv is left stunned by Iris's defeat. Beatrix, impressed, wants to fight Mundane. As Rose is about to end her life, Mundane stops her and kills the cult members. Rose demands he reveal his true form, and Mundane unveils himself as Shadow, surprising Rose as she realizes he is the stylish bandit slayer who saved her in childhood. Shadow urges Rose to get her act together and continue her fight, which she does. When Perv tries to stop her, Shadow wounds him with his sword. Perv calls for reinforcements, but none arrive as Shadow Garden has already dealt with them. As they prepare for the next stage of the fight, Beatrix challenges Shadow, leading to an intense clash that destroys the VIP section. During the chaos, Perv takes the opportunity to escape. After defeating Iris, Mundane Man reveals himself as Shadow in the VIP seating. Iris reflects on recent chaos, including Shadow's bounty and her encounter with Alpha. Shadow then engages Beatrix in a battle that forces spectators to evacuate. King Klaus is informed of the battle's potential spread and orders King Oriana's body returned, despite concerns of inciting civil war. In the VIP area, Iris seeks a weapon against Shadow. On the stadium roof, Shadow tests Beatrix's skills by manipulating his presence. Iris joins the fight, wielding a mithril blade, but Shadow easily dodges and counters, amused by their efforts. Claire searches for her brother while Rose contemplates her next move. Alpha offers Rose a choice to fight alone or join Shadow Garden. As the battle between Shadow, Iris, and Beatrix intensifies across the city, Rose agrees to join Shadow Garden, and Alpha helps her escape with a slime bodysuit. On the speeding train, Iris demands to know Shadow's identity, but he evades her questions. Shadow uses a secret art to control water, but Iris evaporates the attack. Beatrix breaks his crowbars, but Shadow continues to fight. Aneros leaves the train station, promising to meet Mundane again someday. Now on the tower, Beatrix adapts to Shadow's tactics, while Iris attacks wildly. Shadow tells them they cannot defeat him with borrowed power and easily counters their moves. As Iris warns him that the entire kingdom is against him, Shadow laughs and expands his magic across the capital. Shadow hovers over the city, declaring the end of playtime. Princess Alexia trains, determined to stay on her path. Iris drops her sword as Shadow prepares an ultimate attack but decides to clear the weather instead. Beatrix accepts her defeat, and Iris collapses in frustration. Meanwhile, Sherry reads about Shadow's escape and vows revenge, filled with anger. In Oriana Kingdom, Mordred scolds Perv for his failures and orders him not to disappoint again, as turmoil is expected with the king's death. As Beatrix prepares to leave, advising Iris not to dwell on her defeat, she cherishes a gift from Cid and leaves to continue her journey. Meanwhile, Gamma oversees rebuilding the capital, and Shadow Garden works to distract Midgar from Oriana Kingdom. Cid inquires about Shaggy, who took a long-term job. In the Cid household, Mr. Cid is reprimanded for neglecting Cid. Rose and Alpha resupply before heading into a magical forest. Alpha introduces Rose to Shadow Garden's secret headquarters and renames her as number 666, forgetting her past identity. Rose is devastated as her belongings are destroyed. In the ruins, Shadow reflects on his plans as he plays Moonlight Sonata, anticipating the hour of awakening. The next day, the information is being given to the Lord that there has been no conspicuous activities by the cult of Diablos in the Midgar Kingdom and everything is going according to their plan. They can easily focus on the main efforts on the situation in the Oriana Kingdom, but there seems a problem as there is a recent acceleration in the flow of funds going into the lawless city. That region is a giant area where the evil, wealth and power of the world usually converges, and if any tension occurs in that particular region, it's going to put an immense effect on the rest of society. At the lawless city, the watchdog threatens the people that they are not worthy enough to pass through that gate, and the only ones to be authorized are the servants or guests of the Blood Queen and powerful warriors. Quentin and Goldo Kinmetsu discuss that they both are neither the servants of the guests, but Goldo shouts at the Watchdog claiming that they are the powerful warriors and are there to hunt the Blood Queen. Watchdog starts laughing at them as he finds them both even more foolish than himself. He tells them about what happens to the one who challenges the Blood Queen as he lost his right arm and is kept as a pathetic watchdog on a leash just because of that, but still they both have confidence in themselves. Watchdog confesses that he was once called the White Devil, but he's nothing more than a lowly watchdog there.
He's got a point.
Suddenly, the watchdog attacks them both. Claire informs Minoru that she's first going to the Dark Knight Association for a strategy meeting as they have their own night order. She tells him that the Dark Knight Association is an unofficial organization which is founded for Dark Knights that doesn't belong to any public institutions. Claire once won the Bushin Festival Championship. A man approaches them on their way to have a look at his pets. He takes them both inside and starts showing and setting different prices on them. Claire keeps Minoru with him as she knows he's going to get lost. And he lost as he just came outside because he was getting bored in there. He starts getting money there just by taking a stroll and feels that the city is heaven for him. Minoru feels that the red moon is stimulating the magical energy in town, and if he doesn't do anything about that, it is going to multiply only. He is trying to figure out whether he should just leave or stay in the lawless city trying to act. While he's making his decision, Mary the ancient vampire hunter arrives and kills the vampires in front of him in the blink of an eye. She wants him to leave if his life is precious to him as the frenzy has begun. The moon is red and they are turning out of time. Claire goes back to her room and finds Minoru missing. She questions a man there if he has seen his brother with black eyes and black hairs. Mary starts stressing about another street fight while a vampire enters her room and she escapes, but a man named Shadow, who is an evil mastermind who had a field day beating up the corrupt clergy and is as dangerous as any of the rulers of the city. Mary decides to leave the town while breaking her contract and feels thankful to Shadow. Mary tells Claire that if she's finding a man with black hairs and black eyes, she met him a while ago. She tells her that she met two boys with these descriptions, one before the moon was beginning to turn red and he was smiling there, but Claire disagrees as she knows that his brother might scream, but would never smile in such cases. The second boy she met was a while ago but without any noticeable features, and he was about to be taken away by the followers of Blood Queen, and they have taken him to the Crimson Tower, which is the Blood Queen's castle where the vampires wishes him to be the sacrifice of Blood Queen as they requires the blood of a living young man. Mary tells her that they have kept that as a secret for 1,000 years, that once the vampires are going to get enough powers to get the blood of a young living man, the queen is surely going to go back. Even so, the red moon affects the Blood Queen's sleep. But Sid is in the town, which means they have to take that as the blood of a young living man, and Mary's target is Queen Elizabeth, which means they both are heading to the same destination, which is the Crimson Tower. Mary asks Claire to follow her as she has a different way to go there. Lord Crimson is told that all the preparations are being done and they are going to meet some unexpected resistance in certain locations. Lord Crimson knows who's behind that, which is Yukame the Spirit Fox, the ruler of White Tower, Juggernaut the Tyrant, and the ruler of Black Tower. He wants them to keep playing their games as he knows that as soon as the Blood Queen is going to revive, they all are going to meet their ends. The man tells him that there is also someone who is around the city killing ghouls and they need to know about him. At the top stand the two titans, Juggernaut the Tyrant, ruler of the Black Tower, and Yukame the Spirit Fox, sovereign of the White Tower. But in the midst of their silent war, a new threat emerges, an entity known only as Shadow. Lurking in darkness, he hunts his own kind and declares a chilling omen: the moon is red, and the frenzy has begun. A white-haired man seeks to uncover Shadow's identity, convinced the mysterious figure is no match for him, too weak, too quiet.
Are you sure about that?
But he may have underestimated the shadows. Mary and Claire finally made it to the Crimson Tower. Beta has no means of fighting with Claire as she already knows her as the winner of the recent Bushin Festival. She introduces herself as Beta of Shadow Garden, who once burned their school. And as she is working on a research related to the possessed, she wants to have a blood sample from a progenitor vampire, and to test the hypothesis, it's necessary for her to study the Blood Queen as she is a progenitor vampire. Mary, who is a vampire hunter, starts attacking the vampires on their hearts. Mary and Claire are discussing Beta's words where she mentioned about the haven, that what actually that is. Mary tells Claire that as everyone has their own secrets, so she wants them both not to interfere in each other's. Juggernaut, the tyrant who is the boss of Black Tower, is the third most eminently powerful vampire in the tower. On the left it has number 5 and on the right it has a lost number. Mary and Claire decide to wait until he's gone as they want to avoid a fight with him, and they both leave so that he doesn't find out. But unfortunately, Juggernaut attacks Mary, but she doesn't step back but instead attacks him back in his leg, but she starts running out of blood, so she decides to suck Claire's blood by kissing her. Mary gets her energy back and starts attacking Juggernaut, but he feels that still he has more power to fight against her. While she's attacking him, a shadow appears there and threatens them that they have little time remaining and the hour of awakening is near. Mary tells Claire that she has heard that the church has marked Shadow as an enemy and tries to figure out if he came for their help. Mary apologizes to Claire for taking her blood. Mary claims to Claire that she's actually a vampire and is going to tell her why she's here, who she is, and the truth about the Blood Queen. Mary tells her that more than 1,000 years ago, it was a golden age for vampires and they used to hunt the humans and devour them like animals and slurp up their blood as if it was a game, but time changed as humans learned the vampire's weakness, and the hunters became the hunted. Even in the blink of an eye they vanishes from the face of earth, and during that time the Blood Queen, who is Lady Elizabeth, used to live among humans as the ruler of small fiefdom, and all she wanted was to live in harmony with the humans, and gives up blood. They also lose their powers with time but get something in return. Queen Elizabeth was unable to get away from blood, and when sunlight struck her, it burned her skin very badly, so Mary wants to build a haven where humans and vampires can live together in happiness. 1,000 years ago, the red moon rose in the sky when the night gave vampires tremendous power. That time, Queen Elizabeth was starving for blood and Crimson gave her a single drop. That is why the haven disappeared into a pile of rubble and the 3 kingdoms suffered catastrophic damage, due to which Mary herself survived by lapping up the blood of the dead and went in pursuit of the Queen, and she was united with her, which is a mistake she never wants to repeat. Queen Elizabeth stabbed a knife in her heart, but she never turned into ashes, and after that Crimson and his member took Queen Elizabeth with her, and now he is trying to use her again for his own ambition. All Mary wants is to seek Queen Elizabeth's forgiveness. Claire finds herself no better than her as she felt possessed when she was a little girl, and eventually one day she's going to become a monster, and she wants to help her brother achieve something before that happens. That is the reason she brought his brother with her, but she has a fear that if something happens to him, how is she going to apologize? Claire tells Mary that they both should go and defeat Crimson in order to get the Queen back. Mary feels thankful to Claire and promises that they are going to rescue his brother too, but she refuses as she's going to do that on her own with panache.
あなたの弟も必ず助け出すわ。あなたは出しゃばらないでね。
Minoru feels overwhelmed seeing the vampire's treasury.
心が満たされる。
He looks at the Pancog's famous painting, which is the slumber hours, the jewels, the coins which have a worth of 100,000 zeni per coin. The coins have efficiency, reliability, and are portable too, and as he thinks that he's going to live for at least 300 years, which means that money is going to be enough for him. So, he decides to start his mission and make his entry in a flashy way. On the other hand, Crimson is still targeting the queen's heart as her flesh and bones are all wasted away. He wants to paint the world in blood once all over again. He takes the heart and places that in a body so that it comes back to life. Claire and Mary both look for Sid but are unable to find him. Unfortunately, Mary gets a little late to save Queen Elizabeth. Instead, Claire also gets attacked by her as she bites her. The other girls out there feel that their lord hasn't revealed his identity, which means he's doing some other important work first, so they decide to save their lord's sister. But first aid doesn't seem to be enough for her. 664 gets the duty to take care of her while 665 and 666 helps them. Mary claims that they all might be stronger, but Queen Elizabeth has always been a slow riser due to low blood pressure. Queen Elizabeth expended all the magical energy but still shows no signs of fatigue. She is taking everyone's blood and healing herself and making herself even more powerful. 666 is ordered to take Claire and get out of there. Queen Elizabeth starts controlling the blood of the demons which attacked Claire, and she went to the hospital due to that, and she is no longer possessed. She tries to figure out who did that to her. She's even adapting and losing control, and her body is turning into a rotting mess. Aurora tells Claire about the theory of evolution, which suggests that people used to be monkeys, and after long years those monkeys adapted their environment and became humans, but this all doesn't sound relatable to Claire as in her situation. Aurora continues telling her that another scientist came along and mentions that the living creatures do not adapt to their environment. She tells her that the blood is divided into two types as a result of adaptation, which is the possessed and progenitor vampires. They both have different characteristics, and these bot type of bloods are trying to adapt inside Claire, which means she have the right constitutions, but don't know how to control that.
何の話だったかしら。知らないわよ。
Aurora is about to leave as she is going out of time and is going to explain other things like how Claire can control her powers later on, and she's helping Claire just because she is of Shadow. The hour of awakening arrives, which means Shadow arrived, and he kept holding his own magical energy against Queen Elizabeth. He's even more powerful than the Witch of Calamity. The girls out there can't believe that Shadow is protecting them from the Queen's onslaught even though they are helpless against her. Lord Shadow doesn't want to lose even a single person out there. They all can see the benevolence of his heart striking like glittering gold. Juggernaut is thinking to have a fight with Shadow as it's going to be fun. Quentin and Goldo finds themselves to be lucky enough to be alive. Sid thinks that the ghouls, vampires, and the possessed all do have different names but still just have magic overloaded. Claire's left arm keeps tingling, and it wasn't just a normal feeling. It made her think that maybe she had some kind of special powers. She believed that her blood destiny was trying to guide her somewhere important, like it was calling her toward a greater purpose. Her brother Sid couldn't exactly ignore her feelings or the idea of her blood destiny. He didn't completely believe in it, but at the same time, he knew better than to brush it off. He thought to himself that every child, at some point, walks through strange feelings like this, the feelings of power, mystery, or confusion. And Sid believed that when adults dismiss these kinds of thoughts too quickly, it's what pushes kids toward rebellion or getting lost. Claire told Sid that she had powers which are real powers that had taken root in her left hand. She said it wasn't just a feeling, but something she needed to understand and solve. She had to figure out the mystery of where the powers came from and what they meant. Sid, even though he didn't fully understand it, told her that she could get through whatever was ahead. He made it clear that he was always going to be behind her, no matter what path she chose. On their journey together, Claire looked at Sid and asked him if he knew anything about the Shadow. It was a strange question, but Sid didn't flinch. He knew that Claire would face all kinds of tough situations like anxiety, pain, and the hard truth of reality. He knew this wasn't going to be easy for her. As for her left arm and the tingling sensation, Sid gently told her that sometimes these weird feelings are just part of growing up. They may not be magical, but they might just be signs of change as a child becomes an adult. Even though they had both been through so much, Sid felt like things were finally settling. He had faced many setbacks that are unexpected ones, but now he believed the worst was over. He had been aiming to collect 3,000 gold coins, but sadly only 500 remained. That meant he'd only end up with 50 million zeni, which wasn't enough to secure his entire future. Still, he thought it was a decent amount. And besides, the lawless city still stood. 2 towers were still there, and to him, that city felt like his piggy bank. He could always return. When Mitsugoshi asks the girl who they are, the man steps closer with a knife in his hand. He presses the blade near her collar and says Mitsugoshi has been making too much money lately. He talks about how they're selling luxury items like tea leaves, cacao, coffee beans, and spices. Even a small mobile cart could earn them 1,000,000 zeni. He glares at her and says their profits are growing too fast, and his boss wants it to stop. As he says this, he rips open her shirt. The rest of the gang bursts into laughter, mocking the girls standing helplessly in front of them. She stands frozen for a moment, then quietly asks who their boss is. He tells her they must have heard of Garter, the man who handles all buying and selling across Midgar. Apparently, the girls have made him angry. She thinks about how Garter is known throughout the city as a respectable gentleman, the president of the major corporate alliance, a generous donor to the church. He has a clean image in public, but now she sees the truth. The man in front of her grins and says that even the most righteous people have their dark sides. She looks up and, in a steady voice, tells him they already knew that.
You triggered my trap card!
Suddenly, Alpha appears with the rest of her squad. They arrive in silence, their presence overwhelming. Without speaking, they begin changing into their guild uniforms. The atmosphere shifts. Alpha's voice cuts through the tension. She says every living person has a dark side, a hidden past, or something they regret. The gang members stare in disbelief. The leader takes a step back. He recognizes them. It's the women in black. Alpha unsheathes her sword and gives the signal. In moments, the girls launch their assault. The gang members, who were laughing just seconds ago, are wiped out with brutal efficiency. Their expressions turn from smug to horrified in an instant. When it's over, Alpha stands among the corpses and declares that the war has begun. Elsewhere, Sid and his two friends are chatting about their new outfits. They believe the girls will be impressed. They laugh and joke, imagining how cool they look. Then Sid pauses, realizing something. All of their clothes are designed by Alpha and every single piece looks like something he saw in his past life. Suddenly, it all makes sense. Alpha is using Sid's memories of his previous world to design products and boost sales. It's clever, but it also means everything they're earning is built on stolen ideas. He picks up his food tray and walks away. His friends ask where he's going. He simply says he's going to take back what belongs to him.
What do you mean by that?
At his apartment, he changes into his guild uniform, a sleek black coat, gloves, and a mask to cover his eyes. He looks into the mirror and tells himself that from today, he will become a super elite secret agent. The world will know his name. He boards a train heading steadily toward his destination, the cityscape blurring outside the window as he settles into his seat. Not long after, a girl silently joins him, slipping into the seat beside him with practiced ease. She doesn't speak much, but her presence carries a quiet strength, the kind that comes from someone who's survived too much and still chooses to keep going. She is his ally in this mission, sharp-eyed, alert, and loyal. Sid turns slightly toward her, his expression calm beneath the shadows of his cloak. He tells her in a low voice that, from now on, he'll be using a new name, John Smith. He explains that his target is none other than Garter, the man hiding behind a clean public image while pulling the strings of a dirty, underground empire. Sid warns her that the conflict between the two major powers, Mitsugoshi and Garter's organization, is rapidly reaching a boiling point. What started as small, indirect sabotage is now escalating into full-scale economic warfare. The coming days will be dangerous. She knows what's at stake and what kind of enemy they're up against. Sid looks ahead, his voice steady and cold. He says he plans to destroy everything: the corrupted system, the false power structure, the illusions that keep people chained. He'll reduce it all to rubble and then build something new from the ground up, something better, something his own. In response, the girl speaks quietly but firmly. She says she looks forward to a world where the value of money is no longer determined by deception or greed, but by sacrifice and blood. Her words hang in the air like a promise. Later, walking through the city, Sid sees a new currency bill. Curious, he asks his friends where it came from. They say this is the new currency and it's why everything's suddenly on sale. That's when it hits him: Mitsugoshi has started their own banking system. They're printing their own money, controlling circulation. Sid's eyes widen. He decides that he'll destroy the current system, collapse the market, and then relaunch it under his control. He imagines Alpha and the other girls working beneath him in his newly rebuilt economy. He thinks back to his childhood. When he was a kid, he once tried to copy a 1,000 yen bill at the corner store. The shopkeeper yelled at him and ruined his plan. But now, he's no longer that child. He's the elite agent. His dream is back, and this time, it's going to come true. Back on the train, he explains credit creation to his ally. If someone deposits 1,000 yen into the bank issues a paper note to represent that money. But strangely, the physical coins still exist in the bank too. This duplication allows the money supply to grow artificially. That's how Mitsugoshi is profiting by printing fake currency while still holding onto the coins. His ally comments that whoever came up with this must be an artist. Sid hands her both the old and new bills and asks her to compare them. She notes the new one is rougher and the print isn't clean. He nods, saying it means it's easier to fake. He grins wickedly. Mitsugoshi is making counterfeit money and manipulating the economy. They profit both from fake paper money and the actual coins backing them. She points out that these new bills are only in circulation in the royal capital. If they expand further, authorities will catch on. Sid glares at her. She calmly says that discovery is exactly what they want. Once they gather enough gold, they'll disappear. The people will realize too late that their paper bills are worthless. Mitsugoshi will walk away with all the profit. When the train stops, Sid heads to a ramen shop. He eats quietly, blending in. At the next table, some men are gossiping about a mysterious elite agent who's trying to destroy the economy. One of them boasts that his company will kill the guy if he shows up. Sid smirks. The man says the agent works alone, always in the shadows. Just then, Delta walks in and demands food. Sid feeds her bowl after bowl. After 3 servings of meat, she's satisfied. On the way back, she clings to his arm and says he smells like foxes. He lies and says he was hunting foxes. She grabs his face and asks to hunt together. When she insists, he asks if Alpha called her. She stops. He tells her Alpha summoned her. Later, they raid a Getten facility. He moves through the last group. One man begs her to spare him. He says he's her brother. She stares at him, then impales him through the stomach with her tail. She says the world isn't for the weak and walks away. Sid approaches her and asks who the man was. She says her father is the Thurian tribe leader and has over 1,000 children. Then she turns to Sid and asks him to visit her homeland, defeat her father, become the new chief, and father 1,000 children with her bearing at least 100.
It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
Sid, stunned, declines the offer. They finish their mission and prepare to move on. Elsewhere, Getten receives news. Zabra was found dead, and one of their hideouts was attacked. He isn't surprised. Zabra was the weakest of the Clovers. He orders his servant to summon the higher members. They won't step back now. It's time to find out who did this and put an end to it. While Alpha and the other girls discuss how their recent train visits have reduced the number of enemy attacks and how Mitsugoshi is steadily dominating the marketplace, Luna brings up a letter she received. In it, there's mention of how the corporate alliance lacks the subtlety and wisdom of the shadows, and that this coming war of business and politics will be far beyond anything the alliance is prepared to handle. Luna says this could make things difficult for them in the long run. Alpha agrees, but calmly states that they mustn't take any passive-aggressive actions that might break the fragile trust they've built. Instead, she insists they must continue to behave sweetly and maintain the image of harmony so they can help each other, at least on the surface. Suddenly, one of the girls tells Alpha that she has a visitor at the door. Just as she's about to order Nu to give the proper treatment to their guest, Luna steps forward and politely asks Alpha to grant her the permission to handle the matter herself. She promises she'll make the guest understand how things work here. Alpha silently nods, then gestures to the other two to accompany Luna, giving her subtle backup in case things go south. Outside the office, a group of 3 people awaits. Among them is an extraordinarily talented fencer and 2 subordinates agents working under Getten's orders. They talk amongst themselves about how easy it was to slip into Mitsugoshi's headquarters. No security guards, no traps, no resistance. Their target is an elf woman named Luna. It seems almost too easy. As they reach the inner hallway, Luna appears before them, calm and composed. She introduces herself with a polite bow as the manager of the headquarters and welcomes them inside. But as the men start to speak, one of the girls flanking Luna attacks, taking down one of the men instantly. The second girl attacks the next target. Both men fall before they can draw a proper breath. The fencer, startled, stands alone facing Luna. He tries to reassure himself she's still a child, and her confidence must be a bluff.
Cap.
But the moment Luna makes her move, he realizes just how wrong he was. Desperate, he lays a hidden trap near her feet, and when Luna steps into it, she doesn't realize until it's too late. Her energy drains in an instant, her legs give out, and she crashes to the ground. Blood trickles from her nose. The other 2 girls rush to her side. Despite the fall, Luna doesn't waver. Her expression is calm, unwavering. Her confidence doesn't fade. The fencer, unnerved, orders his remaining 2 subordinates to finish them off, but they are already beaten into unconsciousness by Luna's backup. Panic sets in. He turns, trying to flee through a crack in the wall, a secret exit he noticed earlier. Just as he's about to escape, Luna summons her strength one final time. With a single move, she throws her sharp-edged weapon. It slices through the air and hits his nape. The blade cuts clean, and the fencer collapses. Breathing heavily, Luna lowers herself to the ground and mutters softly that the technique she used was her secret move, one she hadn't revealed to anyone until now.
Cap.
When Getten is informed that the Clovers haven't returned since last night, he becomes suspicious. His servant tells him that all contact with them has been lost, and there was an explosion in their area. Getten's expression darkens. The servant warns that Mitsugoshi might start asking questions. Getten, without blinking, orders him to silence them. No questions, no hesitation. He leans back in his chair and thinks to himself, it's just a matter of time. Soon, he will have all the power he once lost. Power that was stolen from him. he will reclaim it piece by piece. Back at school, Sid spars in a sword fighting match with a girl. Her moves are unexpectedly powerful. She disarms him with ease, knocking the sword from his hands. Later that evening, the two sit together eating buns. Sid can't help but wonder, when someone suddenly becomes this skilled, something must have happened. She looks at him and says the power she has isn't enough. She needs more. When he asks why, she says her friend is missing, suffering, and she needs strength to find her. She doesn't want to be on the outside anymore. She wants to move with the current, not be left behind. She envies Sid for how carefree and strong he seems. With those words, she walks away, leaving Sid deep in thought. Sometime later, Sid eats noodles at his usual ramen shop when a woman dressed entirely in black sits beside him without saying a word. She orders her meal and speaks without even looking at him. She tells him the production is complete. Sid smirks. She explains that their hideouts have been used to produce millions of fake bills, and they are ready to flood the market with them. Their entire operation was focused solely on this goal. She shows him two bills, one real, one fake, and asks which is which. Sid stares. They look exactly the same. That means they've succeeded. She gently places the counterfeit bills back into the inner pocket of her coat, her fingers lingering for a moment as if sealing away a piece of her rage. Then, with a calm but commanding tone, she tells Sid that the responsibility for the distribution now lies entirely in his hands. The network is ready, the fake currency is flawless, and the time to act is now. But just before turning to leave, she reminds him Getten is hers. The weight of her words hangs heavy in the air. She doesn't elaborate further, but the fire in her eyes says it all. She has a score to settle, one that runs deeper than business or power. He had taken everything from her beloved mother, her closest friends, her entire village reduced to ashes by his cruelty. She survived, but her heart had long since turned to steel. Now, she vows to take everything from Getten, piece by piece, until there's nothing left. And when she's done, when he's lost everything he ever valued, she will kill him. Meanwhile, back at the main headquarters, Alpha sits behind her ornate desk, flipping through several market reports. She calls Luna over and asks how the circulation of funds is going. Luna, calm and composed as always, shrugs slightly and says it's going okay, but not as active as expected, just a trickle, not a flow. Not much movement in the markets these days, at least not enough to raise suspicion. Curious, Alpha presses further, asking if the corporate alliance has caught wind of any strange fluctuations or odd transactions that could tie back to their recent operations. Luna shakes her head and responds with quiet certainty no one knows anything yet. The news hasn't spread, and the secret remains contained. But Alpha suddenly stiffens. A realization washes over her, chilling in its familiarity. It's the same conclusion the woman in black must have come to, that someone else, somewhere in the shadows, is playing their own game. Someone is moving ahead without them. And if these counterfeit bills are being distributed outside their knowledge, then that someone could be aiming not only to shake the market but to destroy them from within. Alpha narrows her eyes. They've underestimated something, or someone, and now they might all pay the price for it. If someone is distributing fake bills behind their back, they too will fall. Alpha quickly orders Luna to investigate who is responsible and to find out where the fake bills are being spread. When Getten learns of the counterfeit bills in circulation, he becomes enraged. He holds the two bills side by side and asks his servant to tell him which is the fake. The servant guesses the one with slightly worse printing. Getten grits his teeth and demands they track the person responsible. No more games. Meanwhile, Lady Gamma receives intel. She orders 3 girls from Alpha's unit to board a train that's transporting the counterfeit bills. Their mission is to uncover the plans of the mysterious John Smith. The girls infiltrate the train silently, but what they don't know is that John Smith is already prepared. Sid, in his secret identity, ambushes the girls. Within minutes, all 3 of them are overpowered. The train speeds away, leaving the girls lying unconscious by the side of the tracks. They never saw it coming. Alpha and Gamma are discussing the elite members, but there comes a name, John Smith, which is not familiar to them, and they think that it could be a new member of the named children or the president of the lawless city. 665 claims that John Smith's skill is leagues above the most skilled of fighters, as he predicts every move before, even though he's as good as the 7 shadows, and she wants Alpha to go and face him. 664 tries to stop her while telling everything. She takes her and leaves. Alpha and Gamma have to deal with this thing too. They have already assigned Zeta for the search, but the problem is that she hasn't contacted them, which seems like the mission is going smoothly or the cult is putting up high resistance. Alpha wants to end it all quickly so that they can relax together. They both decide to send Delta to deal with John Smith, which seems best to them. Delta attacks John Smith. He threatens her that as she has removed his overhead defense, it's not going to be good for her. He already had an idea that they were going to be the first ones to figure that out, but it seems to be quite soon. John Smith took Delta with her and questions her about what brings her there. So she replies as she's hunting John Smith, but she realizes that the boss is John Smith. which means she can't beat her, so she decides to report Alpha about that. But the guy stops her and tells her about the mission he's into, which is a hush-hush secret mission, which is a mission that can only be accomplished by a super elite secret agent. He wants Delta not to tell Alpha about John Smith. If she's going to tell her, it's not going to be a secret anymore, and his hush-hush mission will not be possible. He fools Delta and tells her that he is going to assign her a new mission and that it is for the safety of the world. Delta seems confused, as that is going to make Alpha really mad, but after hearing that it's for the safety of the world and he is going to give her a reward, she agrees. He takes her to the window and assigns her a mission that she has to go to the Black Tower in the lawless city where there is a bad guy named Juggernaut, and all she has to do is hunt him. Delta agrees and leaves for her new mission. He is sure enough that Delta is going to return before the weather warms up. Gamma informs Lady Alpha that Delta has abandoned the mission. Alpha tells her to continue the search and at least retrieve the body. Gamma claims that the amount of counterfeit bills in circulation is still increasing, which is going to make the citizens doubt the value of paper money, and the wave of demands for redemption is going to bear down on everyone, including Miss Togoshi. So, they need an urgent plan and put an end to John Smith. Iris finds Alexia on her way, as Alexia is there in order to find the specialized books related to law, politics, engineering, economics, finance and ancient linguistics in the palace archives. Iris questions her if she is going to give up the sword and become a scholar instead. She disagrees and tells her that she has a thought on it, that if she keeps swinging her sword at random things, it's going to do nothing. But if she has to wield her sword in a place where it really matters, then she has to earn the right to stand in that place, and because of that, she has no time remaining for anything, as she can't neglect her training. Iris left after hearing that all beta updates show that the adverse effects on the marketplace are immeasurable, and these circumstances can easily lead to inflation. She also tells him that to deal with John Smith, they have sent Delta, who unfortunately lost all the contacts with her and believes that she must have been killed in action, while Lord Shadow continues making his notes according to whatever Beta tells him.
死亡したものと思われます。
He's leaving while leaving his notes there, and it's a rule that the classified documents must either be destroyed or encrypted without any delay. But it is such a complex code that it includes hiragana, katakana, kanji, Arabic numerals, and Roman letters, which are the 5 different languages which Lord Shadow has developed on his own. Beta wants him to teach her those languages, so he hands over those notes to her and wants her to get the meaning of those texts, and if she's going to succeed, he is going to enlighten her.
はじめまして、ジョン・スミス。
But he clarified that he was now called John Smith and had sent Delta to a far-off place, but she was unable to understand whatever he was saying. Although she wanted to support him and be there for him as he saved his life, she felt that he didn't want her anymore. John Smith tells her that she's going to understand everything once it's all over and leaves. The ruler of the White Tower, Yukime, shows John Smith all the gold that she has exchanged with the counterfeit bills, and at that point the coffers of the major corporate alliance are all empty. She tells him that the people are soon going to redeem their money, but the MCAS supply of funds is going to fail to meet the demands, which is ultimately going to affect Mitsugoshi because there are no funds left. Yukime tells him that this all would never happen without his help, as she can't take all the credit for herself. She doesn't want to build herself a fortune, but her real objective is to find Getten and take everything that he has built for himself. She hopes that Mr. Smith is going to wait for her return while trusting in her success. The bank has a notification on it that due to the unforeseen circumstances, the branch is temporarily closed. People felt helpless, as how could they do that to them? They realized that those banknotes were just worthless scraps of paper at that time. John Smith questions the man if he has found out where those counterfeit bills are coming from. He replies that Yukime, the ruler of the White Tower and the lawless city, is behind this, and a carriage from the Snow Fox Corporation is used to transport the gold coins that have been exchanged. Mr. Smith realizes that the route that is used to transport the money is the same route of the counterfeit bills. He orders the carriage to stop. On the other hand, Alpha realizes that Smith doesn't need her anymore when Gamma arrives and informs her that the fall of a major corporate alliance is unstoppable as they are forcing the closure of their shopfronts. Riots are breaking out at their respective bank branches, and the customers are demanding to exchange their money. Gamma gives Alpha an idea. They can show that they have giant stacks of gold coins. While Gamma is giving the idea, Alpha stops her as she thinks it's of no use anymore, as Lord Shadow is the one who is putting the counterfeit bills in circulation, and the credit collapses, so there is nothing they can do. Gamma gets a shock, as she believes Lord Shadow can never abandon them. Alpha tells her that they have failed his expectations and failed to reach his level, and that is the reason for the results. Nu comes and tells them that they have solid evidence, as the man named Getten is leading an operation for the cult of Diablos, and he is conspiring to use the counterfeit bills in a plot to bankrupt Mitsugoshi Corporation. She claims that while they were busy fighting with the economic warfare, Lord Shadow gets to know the truth and he changes his name, cuts them off, and starts circulating counterfeit bills before the cult can execute their plan. A white-haired woman ran into the room and told Lady Alpha that they had finished deciphering the coded message which Lord Shadow gave her, and Itia was the one who coded that, which states that he felt sorry as he decided to turn the traitor and had a solid plan to change his name and print counterfeit bills with the help of an accomplice, and the gold coins they are getting are being stored in the facility where they helped rescue Shadow's sister. They all felt really proud as Lord Shadow did that all for them and chose the best option, which means that Mitsugoshi is going to be able to survive the credit collapse, and the cult doesn't have MCA on their side now, which makes them lose the war. Delta also comes back and tells everyone about the Hush Hush mission. Lord Shadow is trying to find the secret of counterfeit bills, as Yukume has told him before that she's not doing that for money, which means he can keep all the gold for himself.
Yeah, boy.
Everything is going just according to his plan. Two girls come and inform Mr. Smith that they have lost contact with Yukume, and they are afraid of Getten as he's quite skilled. Both the girls get shocked seeing that there are no coins left.
Oh, hell no!
John Smith threatens Getten that he has taken something really special from him, as he's going to pay back for that. Getten claims to Yukume that if he had the power, no one could get that from him. But Yukume is using that power to take that from him. Getten tells her that if he had the money she had taken from her, he could have made that work. Yukume feels that there is something that has changed him, although he's the one who slew her mother, but still there is a truth that he has saved his village and his life. Getten attacks Yukume, but Mr. Smith came there to save her. He gets to Getten and tells him that he's there to retrieve something very precious to him. Yukume feels that it would have been really easy for Mr. Smith to abandon her and refer to her as a precursor thing, which makes him a really compassionate man in her eyes. Mr. Smith kept punching Getten in his face in order to hear whatever he wanted to say. And after several attempts, he feels that the obscene level of power is just like the monster who took the light from his eyes, and if he had that power with him, something would definitely be different than what it is. Yukume hugs Mr. Smith and thanks him. Alpha, who works for the Shadow Garden, approaches Yukume and hands over an envelope which they find in Getten's chamber, claiming that the major corporate alliance is destroyed and they have recovered what needs to be recovered before the royal investigation begins. Yukume claims that they have collected every one of the gold coins because that is the reason Mitsugoshi is going to survive the credit collapse. They have also taken over all the MCAS outlets, and that is how their position in the marketplace is going to be absolute. Yukume shakes hands with Alpha as she agrees on doing business with them. On the other hand, Mr. Smith kept digging holes but didn't find anything in the snow. Skell, Itia and Po come to wake up Sid, as that day is the perfect day to pick up the chicks and work with ladies, but he is not in his room, even though he didn't even lock his room before leaving, which seems quite careless. They both get their eyes on the tickets of the Mitsugoshi Hot Springs land, which are such premium items that not even the highest ranking nobles get them. They try to figure out how Sid gets those tickets, and they can even get somewhere with the glamorous girls of Mitsugoshi. There are overall 6 tickets, which means they both can get 3 tickets each, which makes them really excited. They went through the streets and started announcing that they are going to a hot spring resort and want them to join them. A lady approaches them and questions how they came into possession of those VIP tickets. They claim that they didn't steal them, but their friend Sid gave them to them and wants them to ask the ladies of Mitsugoshi out on a date. Later on, she discusses that with her fellows and tells them that Sid has given the tickets to his classmates and invited Shadow Garden's numbers, as maybe he has some plan of group dates. One of the girls questions what the Mitsugoshi Hot Springs land is, as it's a relaxation resort complex which is set to open in the coming week with a theme based around the legend of Dragon's Tears. In the end, they managed to build a hot springs land, but felt that Lord Shadow had more in his mind than simply to soak in a hot spring, and he didn't seem to be interested in the legend of dragons, but they didn't sense any dragon magic in that area. One of the girls thinks that the dragon may be a metaphor, but they have already eliminated the cult activity in that region. But with the present data, they are unable to conduct any final statement and to look for more, so they decide that 3 of them are going to go on a date with Sid and his 2 friends. The final decision is made that Delta is going to Hot Springs with Sid, and for others, the rock, paper, scissors begins. The day arrives, Skell, Itia and Potato are on a date with Natsume and Zetten. But Sid is not there and his friends state that he's going a little late. All the girls got dressed up, went outside and started playing games. Alpha feels that everyone is having a lot of fun, and it's been quite a long time since they have spent time playing like that. She thinks of Lord Shadow's plan, that maybe it's all what he wanted all along, as they have been battling for a long time and never taking a minute to rest. This was all important for the world's safety, but they had no time for mental and emotional relaxation. No one seems to think of any problem at that time, but Itia picks up an abnormal magical signature underground. Skell, Itia, and Potada are discussing that they both came there with the girls on a date, but they are taking baths in the girls' area, which maybe means that they are avoiding them. Pota claims that it could be the opposite of this, as according to the Count Virgin Boy, when a girl leaves the table on a group date, it's basically to discuss who gets which boy so they don't overlap.
Stupid.
The girls are trying to figure out their lord's objective. The dragon's tears are something that keeps coming to Lambda's mind, so she tells a story. Once upon a year, there lived a kind princess, and she rescued a small dragon that had been separated from its clutch. The dragon and princess become good friends with time and grow up together, but their good days come to an end as the war breaks out, where the dragon protects the princess and fights for her. But when he returns, all the remains of the royal capital were ruined, and the princess was about to breathe her last when the dragon wanted her to open her eyes and soar through the skies together once more. They both start crying while the whole kingdom is covered with their tears. The princess wakes up, but the dragon is not there. The princess calls out his name, which enlightens the sky. Lambda feels that what their lord is seeking lies somewhere in that tale. They feel that the hot springs are reacting to the tears as they pull the water for that hot spring from underground. The teardrops in an immense magical energy show which is not safe for the people there. Those girls decide to do something in order to escort the people from there, but they can't let the public know that they are from the Shadow Garden. They all get in the water and manage to bring everything back to normal. Golden tears start raining down from heaven, which is something their lord is looking for. They get to know that the hot springs are imbued with magical properties. Alpha is sure that Lord Shadow wanted to rescue the soul of that kind and gentle dragon. The management hopes that the people have enjoyed their special event based on Dragon's Tears Hot Springs and welcomes them to purchase their new limited edition grand opening merchandise, and they are also offering a special discount if one buys the whole set. Alpha felt so much relief and thanked Lord Shadow for such a perfect day off. It begins with Sid sitting across from a girl in a quiet, nondescript cafe. The hum of the street fades behind him. He leans forward and tells her why he became the Eminence in Shadow, not out of justice or revenge, but out of something deeper, a desire to feel real in a world that often isn't. He speaks softly but with the clarity of someone who has rehearsed these thoughts 1,000 times in silence. He confesses he wanted to be someone who moved things from the shadows, someone who didn't need the spotlight. It simply felt right. She doesn't question him. She tells him that even if the path is unclear, even if the world calls it foolish, one must never give up. Those words linger in him long after the cafe fades behind. Elsewhere, Rose Oriana is tangled in a dream she cannot escape. Her hands are covered in blood, her sword buried in her father's chest. He looks at her, not with pain, but with cold disappointment. In her sleep, she whispers apologies, begs for forgiveness no one can hear. She jerks awake, her body cold with sweat, her breath heavy. She gets ready for the mission, joining the others in the early dawn without a word. The girls of Shadow Garden gather. They talk about the town, how Castle Town used to shine like polished glass. Now it's rubble, hollowed streets filled with the ghosts of beauty that once was. Rose doesn't join the conversation. Her thoughts drift. She didn't join Shadow Garden for glory. She thought she could help the people. That her title as princess could mean something more. Today's mission is led by number 559. They speak of how she defeated other numbers and earned the name Eminent. Rose isn't surprised. She watches quietly as the others prepare. At the site, ruins of what was once a grand ballroom stand broken and exposed. As they move in, 559 asks if they remember the mission parameters. They nod. They're here to observe what the cult is after, not to engage unless necessary. But tension hangs in the air. Then, 559 casually reveals something. Rose, she says, didn't just train like the rest of them. Her powers were granted directly by Shadow himself. A gift, a legacy. The others glance at Rose, stunned. That's why she was chosen for this. Within the ruins, a ritual begins. A robed man inserts a royal card into a stone slot. A woman steps forward, her hand trailing blood, and places it onto the glyphs. A portal forms in the air. From it emerges a single object, a ring, a key made of royal blood. Rose's breath hitches. One word escapes her lips. Mother. 559 notices and frowns. Then she orders the others to retrieve the key and eliminate everyone involved. She charges forward, but before her blade lands, Rose steps in front of her and blocks the strike. Everyone stops. The air is cold and tense. Rose doesn't flinch. She says quietly that 559 doesn't deserve the powers she's been given, not with this recklessness. The mission collapses. The enemy escapes. Rose, by her own choice, returns with the cult. Shadow Garden can't stop her. 559 is left behind, breathing hard, her fingers twitching with restraint. Back with the cult, Rose moves with purpose. She speaks to their leaders about expanding territories. The cult is growing. Cities are falling into place. She asks about the man behind the curtain, the perverted Shadow. No one has seen him. Not once. Always absent, yet always in control. She marvels at his patience. How he holds the Oriana kingdom from the shadows, never making a move unless he wishes. Some cult members say now's the perfect time to fortify, They've never felt safer. Rose isn't so sure. She wonders what Shadow already knows, what plan is quietly unfolding. Far away, Sid walks down an old inn stairs, lost in thought. The king is dead, killed by Rose, yet she gave up the throne. Why? He's sure he'll figure it out. But before he finishes breakfast, tax officials show up and beat him down. The innkeeper helps. She says Shadow changed her life and now Sid has too. He walks off, smiling. Later, those same collectors brag about treasure in the inn. Sid moves through the shadows. Two men fall before they know he's there. The third turns, confused, sees the blood, and stops breathing. He stares as Sid collects their stolen goods. Sid says nothing, only that being the bigger man makes it right. The innkeeper, exhausted, finds a heavy bag of coins at her door. She looks up. A shadow is fading into the mist. She smiles. Hope doesn't always knock, it just leaves what's needed. Far across the city, 559 is captured. Her mission ends in failure. She's beaten. The cult leader stands over her. He asks, mockingly, which one she'd like to lose first. She closes her eyes, but then a wind moves. A shadow passes the moon. She sees it. He's here. A warm light surrounds her. Her broken bones shift and mend. The cult leader recoils. She rises, smiling, sword in hand. She calls his power the power of shadow. As the girls are healed one by one, they stare in disbelief. It feels like a miracle, a real one. Then comes the question, will he save Rose? 559 doesn't answer. She throws a newspaper into his hands. The headline is sharp and unforgiving, Rose Oriana to marry the Chancellor. Shadow reads it. A deep, boiling anger surges in him. She can't do this. Not after everything. Not after killing her father. He screams. His voice shakes the quiet. Why? Why give up like this? Why surrender to the very system she stood against? He grips the paper tightly. He tells himself that he will save her, that she'll answer for this, that there will be a price. When Lambda arrives at the village, someone asks if the girls are here for reinforcement. They talk about the recent problems, about Rose Oriana, and how Lord Shadow himself will go to the castle. There's nothing they can do. Meanwhile, Sid, dressed as a normal guy, is thinking about how he should enter the palace. Epsilon, known as Shiren and a famous pianist, walks up to him and greets him. She almost says Shadow Master but quickly corrects herself, calling him Sid instead. She tells him that thanks to his powers, she was able to create music, and today she's invited to perform at the palace. She says they'll enter together with Sid posing as her piano student. When they arrive, Pervasset greets them. He asks Shiren about the man accompanying her. She explains that he's her student. They don't seem convinced and say he should perform too, to prove he's really her pupil. Shiren takes her seat. Everyone waits for the function to begin, murmuring that they shouldn't expect too much from a mere student. A beautiful melody fills the room, each note like feathers floating in the air. The sound captivates everyone. They watch him play, stunned by the depth of emotion in his performance. While their attention is locked, his magic quietly strips them of rings and expensive jewelry, each item slipping into his pocket unnoticed. When the piece ends, he stands slowly, letting his eyes wander across the room. He looks for the ring and the key. He uses a magic thread, slicing the air, cutting his palm, and retrieves the ring. One of Rose's maids approaches, telling him that if he's really just a student, he could earn 1,000,000 zeni per performance. He politely rejects the offer and pulls his hand away when she tries to hold it. He asks if she knows where Princess Rose is. The maid gives him a disappointed look, asking if he likes Rose. She says Rose has always been a bad person, even as a child, and now their castle is nothing but rubble because she killed her own father and abandoned them. Sid tells her it's okay if she doesn't want to talk and turns to leave, but a fat guard blocks his way. The guard rants about protecting the kingdom and accuses Sid of stealing palace women. Sid, confused, asks to be excused. The guard yells about Maggie, who always runs from him, calling it love. Sid quietly slips away. In her castle, Rose speaks to herself. She's saved her mother but betrayed Shadow Garden. Then she sees Sid climbing up. She hugs him. He says they're the same, misunderstood, alone. She tells him to forget her. He says he never can. He asks her why. After everything, stabbing her fiancé, killing her father, she's giving up now. She cries. Then she lets go of his hand and tells him there's nothing more to say. That he should leave. That he should forget her forever, and Sid leaves. Afterward, she's confronted by her fiancé. He looks at her and says it seems like she was expecting a visitor. She denies it. Then he touches her face and she slaps his hand away. He tells her she should behave. He grabs her by the throat and warns her again. She falls to the floor and quietly agrees to follow. On the other side, a girl's rank is promoted and she's assigned a mission just below the 7 angels. Her superior tells her not to disappoint her. They talk about how loyal Rose was to the cult from the beginning, but they won't call her a traitor yet. They also mention how Lord Shadow met her today but didn't punish her. There must be a reason he's holding back, they say. Something he's after. That's why they trust him completely, and they will use all their power to destroy the kingdom under his command. When Mordred receives information about the Black Rose, he meets with Perv Asshat. He tells him that if they obtain its power, the cult will be unshakable. He hands over a ring box and says this is the key. Mordred agrees it should never have gone wrong in the first place. He orders him to make no mistakes. As he leaves, Perv Asshat smirks. What a fool, he says to himself. Everything is in his hands, the princess, the ring, all of it. He laughs to the darkness. He asks, almost mockingly, what Shadow will do now, and an evil laugh echoes in the air. Far ahead at the Shadow Garden's hidden headquarters, the girls sharpen their skills, training to fight the guards and elite knights of the palace. Tension lingers in the air as whispers float around some items have been misplaced. But despite this, they trust in their master's will. Everything, they believe, will fall into place when the time is right. At the castle, Cheyenne plays piano, eyes on Sid and a clinging maid. Jealousy stirs, she takes his hand.
It should have been me, not him!
Later, Sid performs nude, stunning all. Outside, the maid waits. Epsilon returns his clothes. Roaming, Sid overhears Perv plotting to kill Rose and marry Riene. Hidden, he vows to protect Rose. In another wing of the castle, Rose sits quietly in her chamber. Margaret brings her tea, but Rose, distant and detached, ignores her entirely. Her thoughts are buried in the betrayal she feels, the coldness of her childhood friend, and the strange silence from the world around her. The door creaks open and Shadow enters. Without warning, he escorts her to a secret room. Inside, behind a hidden door, she sees the unimaginable, her own mother and Perv Asshat together, conspiring her death. They whisper promises of seizing power while intimately embracing, confirming their alliance. Rose stumbles backward, unable to process the scene. Her body betrays her, and she vomits at the realization. Her mind fractures under the weight of what she's seen. She awakens later in a dark room draped in red velvet, surrounded by silent furniture and curtains shielding her from the outside world. Sid plays piano in the background. His presence soothes her spiraling emotions. He offers no grand promises, only quiet understanding. He tells her the world is too bright, too chaotic. People see too much and lose themselves in it. He reminds her to focus only on what truly matters. As she reflects on his words, he vanishes before her eyes, leaving behind only the ring. Back at his lodging, Sid enjoys a bath while muttering about how quickly he loses money. He assumes he must have awakened something powerful inside Rose, something buried. Epsilon joins him. He glances at her and remarks how her body has matured.
Yeah, boy.
She reminds him she was once just a slime, now developed, but still slightly embarrassed. They discuss the ring. She wonders why he gave it to Rose. He explains the lion within her must awaken, and when it does, it will be on the day of the wedding. The day of the wedding arrives with grandeur and tension. Perv Asshat prepares himself, reflecting on how marrying Rose will grant him legitimacy. Through her bloodline, he will gain access to royal power. He opens the box containing the ring, ready to complete his scheme, but the ring is gone. He opens the box again, panicked, searching repeatedly, but the ring has truly vanished.
これで私もラウンズだ。ラウンズだ。待て。
Just then, Mordred appears behind him, offering calm words of assurance. He speaks of the 12 seats at the round table, promising they'll be Pervs after the wedding if everything goes according to plan. As Sid plays a sorrowful melody on the grand piano, Rose walks down the aisle in a stunning dress. When the moment comes, Rose is asked to accept the groom, but she refuses. In a loud, unwavering voice, she accuses him of manipulating her father into destroying Oriana. The crowd gasps, stunned. As she slides the missing ring onto her finger, a hidden recording plays across enormous screens set up throughout the city. Her father's final message, one he recorded before his death, plays in full. He confesses that Perv Asshat was behind everything, manipulating him through drugs and deceit. He expresses love and regret and names Rose as the rightful heir of Oriana. Then, before the gathered nobles and a horrified Riene, he takes his own life. Blood splatters the marble floor as his head rolls to Riene's feet, followed by her own, severed in the same moment. Panic erupts as Rose screams in horror. Feet land on the marble floor, first her guards, then her own, both severed in the same instant. Blood spatters across the polished stone, and silence hangs for a breath before Rose lets out a piercing scream. Servants drop their trays, soldiers reach for weapons, and the nobles, dressed in their ceremonial silks, scramble like frightened animals. Through the rising storm of terror, a figure steps forward, Mordred. He is calm, almost serene, as though everything around him unfolds precisely as planned. With an eerie smile and a voice that slithers like smoke, he declares the beginning of the slaughter. His words aren't loud, but they carry power, and those who hear them feel the coldness of death crawl up their spines. Then the monster appears. Ragnarok, the abomination whispered about in forgotten war journals and blood-soaked folktales. The beast is said to have slaughtered 1,000 men under a blood-red sky. As Ragnarok bellows, the sacred mirrors within the cathedral shatter like glass under divine judgment. Silent and disciplined, they rise from the wreckage, soldiers in blackened armor with crimson crests, their blades humming with corrupted magic. They march out of the mirror fragments as if stepping through time itself, their numbers uncountable. The kingdom collapses into madness. Screams echo from the streets. Civilians trample one another, trying to escape the surge of monsters. Nobles push past servants in a frenzy, clutching their jewels like children clutching dolls. Buildings crack and explode into flame, the heat of war licking the skies. The once proud city turns into a burning portrait of despair. Then Ragnarok moves. Its roar shakes the heavens. It swings a massive limb like a battering ram, sweeping through the crowd indiscriminately. Bodies fly like dolls thrown by a spoiled child. Screams cut off midair. The earth trembles. But before the second blow lands, before its claws can dig deeper into innocent lives, a flash of black slices through the battlefield. In an instant, Ragnarok halts. Its monstrous form trembles. Then, without warning, it splits cleanly in two, half down the middle with surgical precision. No sound, no explosion. Just a clean, final severance. The beast's two halves fall apart with a wet thud, steam rising from the surgical wound. Silence swallows the chaos. The crowd of those who still live stare in paralyzed awe. A shadow floats down through the smoke. He lands softly in the center of the carnage, standing upon the corpse of the beast like it were nothing more than a stepping stone. He is cloaked in darkness that shifts with every breath of the wind. The moment Ragnarok is wounded, he claps slowly. He acknowledges Shadow's overwhelming power, but insists that Shadow still stands at a disadvantage. As he speaks, concealed figures stir within the grand courtroom. One by one, girls disguised as ordinary humans rise. With swift, fluid movements, they don their cloaks' dark garments that shimmer with subtle menace. They step forward in unison, forming a line across the shattered marble floor. These are not ordinary women. These are the agents of Shadow Garden, an army that thrives in silence and shadows. Ragnarok flinches. For the first time, fear flickers behind his demonic eyes. He is outnumbered. But then, with a grotesque twist of his body, he fuses with a grotesque chunk of his own flesh, creating smaller versions of the Black Rose Beast. Dozens of them slither from his torn torso, flinging themselves out into the city. Their mission is simply to kill indiscriminately. Shadow dashes away, slicing through air and stone with his invisible fencing techniques. He carves apart the cathedral walls without hesitation, a spectral blur moving with impossible precision. Alpha watches and mutters to herself that Shadow must leave some wisdom behind before all of this ends. But Shadow is already airborne, tearing through the spawn of Ragnarok. Each step he takes leaves a crater, every movement more like a dance than a battle. Back inside the palace, Mordred is rampaging. He clashes with Alpha and Beta, who curiously refrain from going on the offensive. They are calculating, patient. Meanwhile, Rose takes control. Seeing the chaos unfold, she commands Margaret to lead the civilians to the ancient cellar beneath the palace. Reinforced by centuries of magic and tradition, it is the only place safe from the horrors clawing through the city. As the people flee, Rose paces, thinking, calculating who is fighting whom. Suddenly, Mordred, bloodied and coughing, crashes at her feet. Alpha and Beta interrogate him. They demand answers about the cult, about the Black Rose, about Ragnarok. But Mordred remains stubbornly confident. He tells them Ragnarok will soon eliminate their forces, forcing them to flee like rats. Then he speaks of other worlds, dimensions beyond comprehension. He describes realities devoid of life, spinning endlessly through orbits unknown. When asked what lies at the center of it all, he answers coldly, only a god could know. Mordred continues. He speaks of an ancient magic that once bled into this world, a force so foreign and chaotic it wiped out dragons, dinosaurs, and entire species. Humans rose in their absence, adapting, forgetting. He describes a time when the earth itself was shaped by this arcane energy, long before the written word. Then, Mordred recounts the fall of Atlantis, an island kingdom that vanished from history, spirited away to another realm. Perhaps it was there, he claims, that the cult drew inspiration, and where the knowledge of gatecraft was born. When Alpha questions the origin of the demon Diabolos, Mordred admits it is a child of this world, born from humanity's darkness, a consequence of magical interference in nature. Above, the sky churns. He points upward. An artificial gate to another realm shimmers faintly. He says the Oriana kingdom once opened it by accident, releasing horrors that consumed hundreds of thousands. It was Shadow Garden who sealed the gate, but the scars remain. He turns to Rose, telling her that her royal blood is the reason the cult thrived. As a child, her essence was offered to the cult, a secret her father kept buried. Now, he mocks her and calls her father's love weak, his decisions foolish. Oriana, he claims, is crumbling because of it. Rose refuses to accept this. She vows to carry her father's will, to rebuild her kingdom in light and truth. Mordred scoffs, declaring that her fate is not hers to decide. She is a puppet, nothing more. Laughter dies as Ragnarok's limb crushes Mordred. Lord Shadow strikes, slicing the beast. Mordred screams, this can't be real. But Ragnarok falls. 559 reports all monsters slain, the tide turns. Staggering, Mordred mutters in denial. Shadow impales him, silence. Yet even as he falls, something dark stirs. Mordred is not finished. As red spills from his wounds, something begins to stir within Mordred, something vile, ancient, and unholy. His body starts to convulse violently, muscles spasming under the strain of transformation. Bones crack and rearrange themselves with hideous precision. Flesh stretches and reshapes as if sculpted by a force beyond comprehension. What was once a man is now a grotesque, otherworldly creature, twisted horns sprouting from his skull, talons ripping free from his fingers, and a maw that opens too wide to belong to anything born of this world. He screams not in pain, but in fury. The scream splits the air, echoing across the battlefield like a banshee's wail. With a burst of corrupted energy, he launches himself into the sky, propelled by hatred and madness. His claws glisten under the moonlight as they extend, reaching not for victory, but for vengeance. Each strike is wild, furious, meant to tear through the shadow that humiliated him. But Shadow moves through the chaos like wind through dead leaves, fluid, unreadable, untouched. He dances around each blow with uncanny grace, never flinching, never stumbling. To him, Mordred's movements are clumsy, telegraphed like reading the pages of a well-worn book. His eyes remain calm, analytical. He observes the rage, the desperation, and the raw power spilling from his opponent and muses quietly to himself. Perhaps this beast is just strong enough to be considered. Maybe, just maybe, it's worthy of a rank. One below Delta. Mordred shrieks again and doubles down, attacking in a berserker's frenzy. His monstrous limbs blur as he lashes out, the air warping around his strikes. But even this is not enough. Shadow's patience thins. He's seen enough. The game is over. And then, in the blink of an eye, they vanish. The sky above cracks with a thunderous snap, as though reality itself has been torn apart. The battlefield blurs behind them, and everything slips into a void, an empty realm outside the boundaries of time and space. They land in a dimension stripped of meaning, where there is no sky, no ground, only an endless, silent abyss of darkness stretching in every direction. Shadow stands firm, and Mordred stumbles in confusion. His monstrous form twitches, not understanding what has happened. All the power he once wielded now feels distant, useless in a place that does not obey natural law. Shadow's voice echoes in the stillness, measured and cold. He speaks not to torment, but to educate, to unravel the illusion of Mordred's significance. He explains that all power, every neuron firing in the brain, every proton holding matter together, spins endlessly in circuits that mean nothing. Their existence is without direction, chaos beneath order. He speaks of meaninglessness not as despair, but as fact. That's why no one cares. That's why no one remembers. Because there is nothing to understand. Mordred screams, this time in fear. The void offers no echo. He demands to know what is happening to him, why his power feels diluted, why the world no longer responds to his will. But the dimension is deaf. It answers only with silence, a silence so complete it gnaws at the mind. Shadow walks slowly toward him. He informs Mordred, not cruelly, but as a simple truth, that he is now atomic.
I'm atomic.
Mordred cries out again, but his voice fades into the void like a dying star. Then, it happens. A pulse of light explodes outward from Shadow's hand, tearing through the realm with unimaginable brilliance. The light surges through the darkness like a sun erupting into bloom, illuminating the infinite void with color and heat. So blinding is the burst that it sears through the veil of dimensions, piercing the skin of the world outside. Night turns into day. For a single, breathtaking moment, the very fabric of reality seems to halt. Time suspends its march. Space forgets to expand. Everything, every creature, every soul, every breath pauses in perfect stillness, as if the universe itself is holding its breath to witness what has occurred. And in that pause, Shadow watches. He does not smile. He does not speak. He simply observes as the consequences of truth ripple outward from the heart of the void. In this silence, he becomes the only voice that matters. In this frozen instant, he is not merely an avenger nor a savior. He is the absolute and unseen God moving within shadows. And the world, though it does not yet realize it, has just shifted forever. From across cities, battlegrounds, and ruins, the girls of Shadow Garden lift their heads. Alpha whispers that this is the moment they've trained for the light to dispel all darkness. Shadow descends slowly. Alpha and Beta smile, relieved. Their leader has returned. As he turns, the stars above swirl. He touches Rose's ring. In that instant, she, the ring, and Shadow all vanish, consumed by the light, leaving behind a quiet, ruined world under the moon. Somewhere far away, Nishona rises from her bed, the moonlight reflecting in her eyes as she thinks about how nights like this still remind her of him, a memory that never seems to fade. She walks through the quiet alleyways, the shadows wrapping around her like a second skin. But something feels off. She draws her sword on instinct. No one's there. A sudden jolt takes her down. She's been tasered. Faceless figures step out of the darkness, silent and cold, one of them wrapping a hand around her throat. As her vision starts to fade, one of them looks up at the moon. his eyes wet, sensing something ancient staring back through her. Then, without warning, a shadow crashes down and slices him apart. The figure whispers, "I am Shadow, and I've returned to hunt the darkness." That concludes the anime recap. Make sure you are subscribed and let me know your thoughts. I'm out.